Welcome, brave souls, to a journey deep into the shadows of Canada's most terrifying homes. Behind their walls linger the spirits of the restless, the echoes of long-forgotten tragedies, and chilling encounters that defy explanation. Tonight, we dare to enter the top 25 scariest houses in Canada, each one steeped in legend, haunted by history, and whispered about by those who survived an encounter within. From mansions cursed by grief to homesteads that echo with phantom footsteps, these are not just houses, they are gateways to the unknown. Dare to enter, if you can. The Fairmont Royal York Hotel in Toronto is one of Canada's most iconic landmarks, a towering symbol of elegance, wealth, and architectural grandeur since it first opened in 1929. Standing proudly across from Union Station, it has welcomed royalty, presidents, celebrities, and countless travelers through its ornate doors. Its glittering chandeliers, sweeping staircases, and refined ballrooms have long made it a beacon of sophistication in the heart of the city. But beneath its polished marble floors and velvet draperies lies another legacy, one steeped in whispers, shadows, and a sense that the Royal York's history is very much alive, and not always in ways its guests expect. From the very beginning, the hotel was built to impress. At the time of its completion, it was the tallest building in the British Empire. A 28-story titan of luxury designed to symbolize Toronto's growing importance. Yet grand structures often hold on to the memories of those who passed through them. Over the decades, countless guests and staff members have reported eerie occurrences within its walls. Stories circulate not just of the hotel's glamorous history, but of restless spirits that seem unwilling or, perhaps, unable to leave. One of the most enduring legends of the Royal York involves the figure of a woman in white. Guests describe her as tall and graceful, dressed in a flowing gown from a bygone era. She drifts silently through the hotel's corridors, her presence felt more than heard. Sometimes she is glimpsed on the mezzanine level, gliding as though she has an urgent destination, only to vanish before anyone can follow. At other times, she is seen peering into ballrooms late at night, watching celebrations long since finished. Staff say that when she passes, a sudden chill sweeps through the air, as though the atmosphere itself recognizes her ghostly presence. The origins of this woman remain shrouded in mystery. Some speculate she was a bride who died tragically before her wedding day, forever bound to the hotel where her dreams of happiness were lost. Others believe she might have been a socialite from Toronto's early high society, someone who once frequented the Royal York's glittering parties and who cannot bear to let go of the past. Whatever her identity, her presence has become one of the most famous supernatural tales associated with the hotel. And guests who catch sight of her rarely forget the unsettling beauty of the encounter. But the woman in white is not the only ghost said to linger. Phantom footsteps echo throughout the hotel's long hallways, even when no one is near. Guests have reported lying awake at night in their rooms, listening to the sound of boots pacing steadily outside their doors, only to open them and find the hall empty. Sometimes, these footsteps are accompanied by faint whispers, voices too muffled to make out, yet distinct enough to send shivers down the spine. A sense of being watched often accompanies these noises, as though unseen eyes are following each movement. Elevators in the Royal York also seem to have a life of their own. Many times, they have been observed moving between floors without being called. Guests have reported stepping inside only to feel an icy coldness sweep over them, as though they are sharing the space with someone or something they cannot see. Staff, who know the building's quirks, often shrug these incidents off. But even they admit that sometimes the elevators behave in ways that cannot be easily explained. There are also reports of locked rooms rattling in the night. Staff have told of passing by secured guest rooms or unused service areas and hearing the unmistakable sound of knocking or scratching from within. Handles rattle and doors tremble as though someone is desperately trying to get out. When opened, however, the rooms are empty, their silence as unnerving as the noise that came before. Some workers believe these disturbances are connected to the hotel's long history of guests who died during their stays. Their spirits left restless and confined within the very rooms where their lives ended. The Royal York has been a witness to countless lives, and its halls seem to absorb the emotions and energies of the past. During World War II, its grand spaces were filled with servicemen and their families. Moments of joy mixed with heartbreak. Celebrities, politicians, and monarchs have walked its halls, leaving their mark on the building's history. Some believe that the intensity of these experiences, the celebrations, the farewells, the tragedies, has imprinted itself on the hotel, creating the perfect conditions for hauntings. For guests who have encountered the paranormal within its walls, the experience often carries a strange mixture of fear and awe. To glimpse a woman in white, to hear footsteps in an empty corridor, or to feel a sudden chill in the stillness of night, is to recognize that the Royal York is not merely a hotel, but a living monument to the city's past. Its ghosts are woven into its fabric, reminders that luxury and darkness can coexist, and that even the most beautiful places can harbor secrets. Hatley Castle in Victoria, British Columbia, stands as one of Canada's most beautiful and imposing estates. Built in 1908 by coal baron James Dunsmuir, the castle was intended to reflect the grandeur of European estates, while providing a stately home for his family. With its elaborate stone, facade, manicured gardens, and sweeping ocean views, Hatley Castle exudes elegance and history. Yet beneath the beauty lies something far more unsettling. For many who have walked its halls, the castle feels alive with memories, as if the very walls have absorbed the joys, sorrows, and tragedies of the Dunsmuir family who once lived there. Today, as part of Royal Roads University, students and staff continue to whisper of eerie encounters that suggest the Dunsmuirs never truly left their home. The Dunsmuir family's story is one steeped in both fortune and loss. James Dunsmuir, son of Scottish immigrant Robert Dunsmuir, who had built a coal empire, sought to create a home that would rival the great estates of Europe. With no expense spared, Hatley Castle was erected as a testament to his wealth and ambition. The sprawling mansion boasted 50 rooms, intricately carved woodwork, stained glass, and grand staircases. It was meant to stand for generations, a legacy of the Dunsmuir dynasty. But legacies, especially ones forged in ambition and shadowed by family tragedies, often leave behind more than bricks and stone. They leave behind restless spirits. After the Dunsmuir family moved in, tragedy soon followed. James's beloved wife, Laura, is said to have adored the castle, often filling its rooms with laughter and gatherings. Yet not all moments within its walls were happy. The Dunsmuir children endured illnesses, misfortunes, and heartbreak. And whispers say that grief left an indelible mark on the estate. Over time, the family's presence waned, but locals began to murmur that something of the Dunsmuir spirit lingered, unwilling to relinquish their claim to Hatley Castle. Today, the castle is used as part of a bustling university, with classrooms and offices spread across the estate. But students report experiences that defy explanation. The most common tale involves phantom footsteps echoing down the long corridors. Often, students hear the heavy tread of boots pacing the upper floors, only to find no one there. Some believe these are the footsteps of James himself, still making his rounds through the castle, watching over the home he built to secure his legacy. Another chilling phenomenon involves the castle's windows. Students and staff recount how windows that had been left open are suddenly slammed shut with tremendous force, even when no breeze stirs outside. At other times, closed windows creak and rattle, as if unseen hands are trying to pry them open. Some claim this is the work of Laura Dunsmuir, whose restless energy is said to sweep through the castle. Others whisper that the activity belongs to one of the Dunsmuir children, still caught between this world and the next, playfully interfering with the living. The castle's heavy wooden doors are also notorious for their unearthly behavior. Reports describe them swinging shut with such violence that the sound reverberates through the halls, startling those nearby. What makes the accounts unsettling is that these doors often close when no one is around to touch them, as though unseen forces are asserting their dominance over the castle. Students working late into the night have grown accustomed to the sudden crash of a door echoing down the hallways. A grim reminder that they are not alone. Beyond the physical disturbances, Many have spoken of a pervasive feeling within the castle itself. Some describe entering a room and being overcome by a sense of being watched. Others feel an inexplicable coldness settle over them, a chill that seeps into the bones even when the building is warm. There are accounts of shadows moving across walls when no one is there to cast them, and fleeting glimpses of figures in period clothing drifting through the halls. These apparitions, always silent, vanish as soon as they are noticed, leaving behind only a lingering unease. Hatley Castle's haunting seems inseparable from the lives of the Dunsmuirs themselves. To some, the activity reflects a family unwilling to let go of their grand estate, clinging to the beauty and power it represented in life. To others, the disturbances echo the sadness and loss that once filled its rooms, memories imprinted on the castle that replay endlessly. The ghosts of Hatley Castle are not violent, but they are persistent, ensuring that anyone who walks its halls feels their presence. Over the years, the castle has also captured the imagination of filmmakers, serving as a location for movies and television shows. But behind the cameras and stage drama, those who spend time inside often report real moments of fear. Crews experiencing sudden chills, equipment malfunctioning inexplicably, and strange noises disrupting their work. Even those who come to the castle for its beauty and cinematic fame often leave with stories they cannot explain. For students of Royal Roads University, Hatley Castle is both a place of learning and a reminder of the unseen. Late at night, when the campus grows quiet, the castle becomes more than just a building. It becomes a keeper of secrets, a place where the past walks beside the present. The footsteps, the slamming doors, the moving shadows, all point to the same unsettling truth. The Dunsmuir family may be gone, but they are far from forgotten. Craigdarroch Castle in Victoria, British Columbia, is one of Canada's most beautiful, yet eerily unsettling landmarks. Built in the late 1800s by the wealthy coal baron Robert Dunsmuir, the mansion was meant to be a showpiece of wealth and influence. With its towering turrets, elaborate woodwork, and stained glass windows, Craigdarroch was a grand statement of Victorian opulence. Yet behind the beauty lies a darker history, one that seems to linger in the very stones of the estate. Visitors and staff alike whisper of strange occurrences, ghostly music, and spectral figures that suggest the Dunsmuir family never fully left their lavish home. The story begins with Robert Dunsmuir himself, who commissioned the castle but never lived to see its completion. He died before it was finished, and his family moved into the mansion instead. The house became both a monument to his legacy and a stage for the tragedies that followed the family for generations. It is said that loss, greed, and the weight of enormous wealth created tensions that never truly faded, even after death. Some believe that the very walls of Craigdarroch absorbed this energy, and now release it in mysterious, unexplainable ways. One of the most common reports from those who visit the castle is the sound of piano music drifting through its halls. The problem is that when the sounds are heard, the music room is always empty. Staff have checked countless times, only to find silence upon entering. Some claim that it is the spirit of Joan Dunsmuir, Robert's widow, still entertaining her guests as she once did. Others think it may be one of the daughters, who was known to play the piano during family gatherings. The ghostly notes are described as faint, haunting, and often trailing off as if the unseen musician becomes aware that they are being listened to. Figures in period clothing are also reported wandering the grand staircases and hallways. Visitors have described seeing a woman in a long dress, her features indistinct but her presence undeniable. She is often spotted on the main staircase, where she seems to glide gracefully before vanishing into thin air. Others have seen shadowy shapes moving across the windows at night, even when the castle is closed. Tour guides and caretakers, who spend the most time inside its walls, speak of cold spots that linger in certain rooms, as though someone unseen is standing close by. Perhaps the most unnerving aspect of Craigdarroch Castle is the heavy atmosphere that many describe upon entering. The air feels unusually thick, as though charged with some unseen energy. Some visitors feel watched, even in empty rooms. There are stories of sudden chills sweeping through a corridor, or an unseen hand brushing against someone's arm. Windows that were open are suddenly found shut, doors creak and slam without explanation, and footsteps echo in empty stairwells. These experiences have left even the most skeptical guests unsettled, questioning what really lingers in this historic home. The Dunsmuir family themselves were no strangers to tragedy, and perhaps this is why their presence seems to persist. Robert's untimely death before the completion of the castle, Joan's years of widowhood spent in its halls, and the turbulent lives of their children, all of these stories feed into the sense that unresolved emotions remain within the house. Wealth could not shield the family from sorrow, and Craigdark seems to have become a vessel for both their grandeur and their grief. Students, historians, and paranormal investigators who have explored the site often come away with their own stories. Some bring recording equipment and capture faint whispers or unexplained sounds. Others snap photographs only to later notice strange figures in the background, faces or silhouettes that were not visible at the time. Security staff who patrol the property after dark have reported hearing footsteps ahead of them in empty halls, always just out of sight, as though someone is leading them deeper into the mansion. But when they follow, they find nothing but shadows. Craigdark Castle is more than a museum or a relic of the Victorian era. It is a place where history and haunting intertwine. Its architecture is beautiful, its story rich, but beneath the polished wood and stained glass lies something harder to define. It is a lingering presence, a reminder that the past does not always stay silent. The piano still plays, the footsteps still echo, and the figures of long-gone residents still seem to wander the grand halls. For those who visit, the castle offers more than a glimpse into Canada's past. It offers a brush with the unknown, a chance to stand in the presence of something that refuses to fade away. The Bytown Museum in Ottawa is a place where Canada's history and its hauntings collide. Housed in a sturdy 19th-century stone storehouse beside the Rideau Canal, it is one of the capital's oldest surviving buildings. By day, it welcomes visitors curious about the city's past, guiding them through exhibits that recount the early days of Bytown, the rough settlement that grew into Ottawa. But when night falls and the last footsteps fade, the museum takes on a darker, more unsettling character. Stories of phantom voices, spectral figures, and cold, oppressive air have become as much a part of its legacy as the artifacts inside. The building was constructed in 1827 as a commissariat storehouse for the British military during the building of the Rideau Canal, itself one of Canada's great engineering achievements. The canal's construction, however, was marked by backbreaking labor, dangerous conditions, and a staggering death toll. Some believe the restless spirits never left the place, bound forever to the canal and the stone building that oversaw its creation. Visitors who tour the museum often remark on an eerie atmosphere, while admiring displays of tools, furniture, and personal belongings from Ottawa's early years. Some suddenly feel a wave of cold sweep over them. These cold spots appear without explanation, even in the warm summer months. Guides and staff members, who know the building better than anyone, admit that these icy chills are frequent, often accompanied by the feeling of being watched. One of the most commonly reported experiences is the sound of footsteps echoing in empty hallways. Late at night, when the museum is locked and quiet, staff preparing for events or security making rounds have heard the distinct tread of boots pacing across the wooden floors. Sometimes the footsteps approach, growing louder, only to stop suddenly, as if the invisible walker has vanished into thin air. On other occasions, the steps seem to follow employees from room to room, creating the unnerving sensation of being stalked by something unseen. The museum's most famous ghost is believed to be that of Colonel John by himself, the military engineer who oversaw the construction of the Rideau Canal. He died in England in 1836. But legend has it that his spirit returned to Ottawa to linger near the project that defined his career. Shadowy figures in military attire have been glimpsed moving through the galleries. Some visitors describe seeing the apparition of a man in old-fashioned dress, standing silently near a window or gazing at exhibits, only to dissolve into nothingness when approached. Employees have long whispered about disembodied voices echoing through the stone walls. These voices range from faint murmurs, as if people are holding a hushed conversation in another room, to clear words spoken aloud in otherwise empty spaces. More than one staff member has claimed to hear their name spoken by a voice they did not recognize, only to turn and find no one there. Such experiences often leave them rattled, unsure whether to chalk it up to imagination or accept that the past is speaking directly to them. The violent history associated with the canal's construction also lingers within the museum. Fights among the rough laborers were common in Bytown's early days, and bloodshed often stained the streets and taverns. Some say this unrest is embedded in the stones of the commissariat building itself. A few visitors have reported sudden, overwhelming feelings of dread or sadness while walking the galleries, as though the emotional residue of those who suffered and died has seeped into the environment. Windows are known to slam shut on their own, even when there is no breeze. Heavy doors creak open as if pushed by unseen hands, then close again with force. Lights flicker without explanation, plunging certain corners of the museum into momentary darkness. Some staff members have even admitted to avoiding certain rooms at night, unable to shake the oppressive atmosphere and the sense of being surrounded by unseen presences. Paranormal investigators who have visited the Bytown Museum often leave with chilling evidence. Recordings have captured unexplained whispers, faint knocks, and even the sound of music when none was playing. Cameras have picked up shadowy shapes moving across the frame, while motion sensors trigger in locked rooms. For many, this evidence supports the stories that have been told for decades, that the Bytown Museum is alive with the energy of those long dead. What makes the museum especially haunting is the way its history and its hauntings intertwine. The building is not simply an old structure. It is a witness to Ottawa's birth, to the grueling labor of the Rideau Canal, and to the turbulence of Bytown's earliest years. Every stone seems to hold memory, every corridor a whisper. For some, visiting the museum is a chance to connect with the past. For others, it is a brush with something far less comforting, a reminder that history is not always silent, and the dead do not always rest. The Bytown Museum remains one of Ottawa's most important cultural sites, but its reputation as one of the city's most haunted places is undeniable. Visitors continue to leave with stories that defy explanation: phantom footsteps, shadowy figures, and the chilling sensation of unseen eyes watching them from the darkened halls. It stands as a place where the line between museum and mausoleum blurs, where history and haunting coexist, and where the past refuses to be forgotten. The Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, known as the Castle in the Rockies, is one of the most beautiful and iconic landmarks in Alberta. Yet behind its majestic walls lies a darker reputation. Since opening in 1888, the hotel has welcomed royalty, celebrities, and countless travelers. But many guests leave with chilling stories of encounters they cannot explain. Among its luxurious halls and breathtaking mountain views, whispers of tragedy and restless spirits echo, giving the Banff Springs its place as one of the most haunted hotels in Canada. The most famous legend is that of the doomed bride. Her story has been passed down through generations, and while the details vary, the ending is always tragic. She was a young bride on her wedding day, walking down the sweeping staircase of the hotel in her gown. Some say she tripped on the hem of her dress. Others believe her veil brushed against a candle and startled her into a fall. Whatever the cause, she tumbled down the staircase and met her death before she ever reached the man waiting to be her husband. Since that day, many guests have reported seeing her spectral figure. She is described as a woman in a flowing white gown, often seen gliding across the grand staircase or appearing suddenly in dimly lit hallways. In some accounts, she appears dancing, her veil trailing behind her, as though she is reliving the moment of her celebration, forever trapped between joy and grief. Staff members have whispered about strange occurrences near the staircase, such as sudden cold drafts, flickering lights, or even the sound of faint footsteps when no one is around. Some claim to hear the faint rustle of a wedding gown brushing along the marble floors, only to turn and find no one there. Guests have awoken in the middle of the night to the image of the bride standing silently at the foot of their bed, her face hidden beneath her veil, her presence overwhelming with sorrow. The bride is not the only spirit said to walk the halls of the Banff Springs. One of the more mysterious legends tells of a phantom bellhop, a helpful spirit who appears in guest rooms dressed in a vintage hotel uniform. Visitors have reported calling for assistance only to find a friendly bellhop appearing almost instantly, offering to help with luggage or providing directions before vanishing into thin air. Some have described him as cheerful and polite, his presence so natural that they don't realize he is not part of the staff until they ask the front desk later, only to learn no one fitting that description exists. One popular theory is that the phantom bellhop is the spirit of a former employee named Sam Macaulay, who worked at the hotel in the mid-20th century. He was known for his dedication to service and his warm demeanor. After his death, it's said that his loyalty to the Banff Springs did not end. His ghost continues to serve guests, making sure they feel welcome, even in death. For many, this spirit is less frightening and more comforting, a reminder that some bonds to a place never break. But there are other stories, less kind, ones that speak of rooms that seem cursed. Room 873, in particular, is shrouded in rumor. The story goes that long ago, a family was brutally murdered inside the room, and afterward, the hotel sealed it off, bricking over the doorway to hide its existence. Guests on that floor, however, often report strange activity near where the room once stood. People describe hearing muffled screams, the sound of frantic knocking, and even handprints pressed into the walls, as though the spirits trapped within are still desperate to escape. Visitors exploring the hotel at night tell of encountering shadowy figures wandering the halls, especially near the older wings. Disembodied voices, unexplained chills, and flickering lights are common reports. Musicians practicing in the grand ballroom have claimed to hear piano notes played in the background, even when they are alone. Others have reported being touched on the shoulder, only to turn around to an empty room. Despite its chilling stories, the Fairmont Banff Springs remains one of the most beloved destinations in the Rockies. Its grandeur, history, and beauty continue to draw visitors from around the world. Yet for many, it is the tales of the unseen that linger longest after their stay. The bride who never finished her walk down the staircase, the loyal bellhop who refuses to leave his post, and the eerie mysteries of sealed rooms all ensure that the castle in the Rockies is not just a marvel of architecture, but also a place where the veil between the living and the dead seems thin. The Fairmont Palliser in Calgary, Alberta, is a jewel of Canadian history and luxury. Since opening its doors in 1914, it has welcomed royalty, celebrities, and travelers from around the globe. Its grand design echoing the prosperity of the early 20th century. With its sweeping staircases, glittering chandeliers, and old-world elegance, the Palliser feels timeless, yet it also carries with it a reputation far darker than its gilded appearance suggests. For over a century, whispers of ghostly presences, chilling encounters, and unexplainable events have clung to its hallways, leading many to believe that some of its guests never truly checked out. The most frequently told story of the Palliser involves the mysterious woman of the upper floors. Guests and staff alike have described seeing her figure, often lingering in the quiet corridors when the hotel is at its stillest. She is described as elegant, though her features are often obscured, and her presence is accompanied by a sense of sorrow that seems to seep into the very air. Some claim she is dressed in old-fashioned attire, a reminder of the early days of the hotel's operation. Others describe her as shrouded in shadows, her face never quite visible. Regardless of how she appears, all agree on the same thing: she is restless. Theories about her identity vary. Some suggest she was a guest who lost a loved one during the First World War. Others believe she may have been a woman who died tragically within its walls, perhaps by accident or even by her own hand. Her grief so strong it anchored her to the place. There is also speculation that she was connected to Calgary's early oil boom, a woman whose fortunes turned sour, leaving her to wander the Palliser in eternal longing. Whatever her story, her presence lingers. Those who encounter her often feel the weight of her grief, describing the experience as both unsettling and profoundly sad. Beyond the lady in the halls, the Palliser is alive with other unexplained phenomena. Guests frequently report flickering lights in their rooms or corridors, with bulbs dimming and brightening as if manipulated by unseen hands. Maintenance crews have checked the wiring countless times, yet no explanation ever satisfies those who have watched the lights pulse in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat in the shadows. There are also reports of whispers that drift through the corridors late at night. Guests have awakened to the sound of faint voices outside their rooms, only to open their doors and find the hallway empty. Staff closing down sections of the hotel have spoken of the same thing, low conversations echoing just beyond hearing, as though unseen figures are holding their own timeless gathering in the stillness of the night. Cold spots are another common feature of the Palliser's hauntings. Entire sections of hallway will suddenly drop in temperature. The chill so sharp it feels as though someone has opened a freezer door. Guests describe goosebumps racing across their skin, the air suddenly heavy and pressing, before the warmth returns, just as quickly as it vanished. Some of the most unnerving encounters involve apparitions glimpsed in mirrors and reflective surfaces. Guests have reported catching sight of figures standing behind them in their bathroom mirrors, only to whirl around and find themselves completely alone. Housekeeping staff have told of glimpsing faces in the ornate glass of the lobby, their features watching silently before disappearing into nothingness. One particular story from the Palliser that continues to circulate involves a couple staying on the upper floors. Late at night, the wife awoke to see a woman standing at the foot of the bed, staring intently as though searching for something or someone. Terrified, she woke her husband, but by the time he opened his eyes, the figure had vanished into the darkness. The woman swore she had not been dreaming, and to this day insists that the sorrowful presence of the ghostly lady was real. Employees of the hotel have learned to live with the strange activity. Some avoid certain rooms after dark, while others admit to speaking aloud when they sense something in the shadows, offering a polite greeting to whatever lingers there. Longtime staff say that though the spirits of the Palliser may unsettle, they are rarely malicious. Instead, they are trapped echoes of grief, memory, and longing, woven into the very fabric of the hotel. What makes the Palliser's hauntings especially fascinating is the contrast between its reputation and its reality. By day, the hotel is vibrant, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the bustle of luxury. But when night falls and the guests retreat to their rooms, the atmosphere changes. The building grows quiet, the shadows stretch longer, and the sense of being watched begins to creep in. It is as though the Palliser wears two faces, one of opulence and grandeur, the other of sorrow and silence. Those who have experienced the hauntings firsthand often describe the encounters as unforgettable. Whether it is the flicker of lights, the phantom whispers, the chill of an unseen presence, or the vision of the grieving woman herself, the Palliser leaves its mark. Many leave the hotel with the unsettling realization that the line between past and present is thinner than they imagined. Over a century since its opening, the Fairmont Palliser continues to enchant guests with its luxury and history. Yet behind its polished doors and elegant corridors, something else lingers. The stories told by guests and staff suggest that some of the hotel's residents have never left. Their grief, longing, and memories forever tied to the grand building. For those who stay the night, the Palliser offers not just comfort and elegance, but also the chance to brush against the unseen reminders of lives once lived and presences that refuse to fade. The Old Angel Inn, nestled in the picturesque town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, is more than just a charming tavern with rustic beams and cozy fireplace. It is a place where history and the supernatural seem to walk hand in hand. Its foundation was laid long before the modern comforts of today, and its story is deeply intertwined with the War of 1812, a conflict that left scars on the land, its people, and even, as many believe, its spirits. Among its ghosts, one figure is said to linger most powerfully: Captain Colin Swayze, a British officer whose loyalty and tragic end have bound him to the inn forever. The Old Angel Inn dates back to the late 18th century and is widely considered one of the oldest operating taverns in Ontario. Its walls, built of heavy stone, have withstood war, fire, and countless reinventions. But beyond the food, drink, and laughter that fills the establishment today, there is a deeper, almost mournful resonance that settles in the air. Guests and staff alike whisper about the presence of something or someone that refuses to leave. The legend traces back to the darkest days of the War of 1812, when Niagara-on-the-Lake was under siege and the streets outside the inn echoed with violence. Captain Colin Swayze was a British officer stationed in the region during the war. Accounts suggest he had developed a fondness for a local woman, and on the eve of an American attack, he risked returning to town to see her. The story tells that Swayze slipped into the inn, perhaps to find shelter, or perhaps in pursuit of this last, reckless act of affection. Tragically, he never left alive. American soldiers, sweeping through the area, discovered him hiding in the basement. What followed was brutal. Swayze was cornered and stabbed repeatedly, left to die in the dark, damp cellar of the Old Angel Inn. His death was quick, but not quiet. Locals spoke of hearing his final cries echoing up the stone steps, long after the soldiers had departed. Since that day, it is said that Captain Swayze has remained tethered to the site of his violent end. Staff working in the tavern speak of heavy footsteps in the cellar when no one is below. The sound is unmistakable. The sharp, deliberate strike of military boots pacing on stone. It is as if the captain is still walking his eternal patrol, unable to abandon his post. Shadows have been reported shifting in the corners of the basement, figures shaped like a man but vanishing when approached. In some cases, employees claim to have felt an oppressive energy pressing down on them while in the cellar, as though someone unseen were standing close, watching, ensuring they did not trespass too long. The legend has grown to suggest that Captain Swayze's haunting is not one of menace, but of duty. Though he was killed, he has remained loyal to his country and his position. Even in death, he is said to guard the Old Angel Inn from invaders or intruders. This belief is woven into the very traditions of the tavern. It is said that a Union Jack must always be displayed inside the inn. If it is removed, the captain's spirit grows restless. Staff claim that strange activity intensifies when the flag is not properly in place. Doors slam without warning, lights flicker violently, and whispers echo in the narrow halls. The simple presence of the flag seems to calm him, a reminder that the cause for which he gave his life still stands. Guests have also encountered the lingering presence of the captain. Patrons dining in the warm, candlelit rooms have spoken of feeling sudden chills, even when the fireplace blazes nearby. Some have seen a figure dressed in period clothing, briefly glimpsed in the corner of their vision. When they turn, the man is gone. One chilling account tells of a visitor descending into the basement for a private tour, only to feel a sharp tug at their coat, as if someone were trying to pull them back. They fled the cellar, shaken but convinced they had brushed against the ghostly captain himself. The Old Angel Inn, with its creaking floors and ancient stone walls, seems designed to hold memories. The line between past and present feels blurred, as if the tragic events of 1812 continue to play out in fragments. Perhaps it is the intensity of Captain Swayze's final moments, his desperate attempt to hide, his violent death, and his unfulfilled longing that keep his spirit bound to the tavern. Or perhaps it is something deeper, the refusal of a soldier to abandon his duty even in death. Whatever the cause, his presence has become as much a part of the inn's identity as its historic charm. Visitors today often arrive curious, drawn by both the inn's reputation for hearty meals and its ghostly tales. Some leave with only a good story to tell, while others leave convinced they have brushed against something beyond explanation. For the staff, the captain is an almost constant companion, his unseen footsteps and shadowy presence reminders that the past is never truly gone. The Old Angel Inn thrives as a place of warmth and gathering. But beneath the laughter and clinking glasses, the echoes of war remain. And in the cellar, where the air is always a little colder, Captain Colin Swayze still paces, ever loyal, ever watchful, forever bound to his post. The Donnelly House in Lucan, Ontario, is a place where tragedy has seeped into the very ground, leaving behind a legacy of violence, sorrow, and lingering spirits that refuse to move on. To understand why this house is considered one of the darkest and most haunted sites in Ontario, one must first understand the grim history of the Donnelly family. The Donnellys were Irish immigrants who came to Canada in the 1840s, settling in Lucan, a rural farming community. From the beginning, their presence stirred tension. They were hard-working but fiercely independent, and their refusal to bow to local power structures put them at odds with neighbors. Land disputes, accusations of arson, and bitter rivalries made the family notorious. For years, whispers and hostility grew around them until it reached a boiling point that would lead to one of the most infamous massacres in Canadian history. On the night of February 4, 1880, a vigilante mob descended on the Donnelly homestead, fueled by years of resentment and convinced that the family was to blame for every misfortune in town. They took justice into their own hands. The mob broke into the house in the dead of night and brutally murdered several members of the family. James Donnelly, his wife Johanna, their son Tom, and niece Bridget were all killed in a frenzy of violence. Their home was set ablaze, and their legacy forever stained with blood. The site of the massacre, along with a reconstructed version of the Donnelly homestead, has become a place of fascination for both historians and paranormal investigators. People who visit the area speak of an oppressive energy, a heaviness that seems to settle on the chest, making it hard to breathe. It is as if the land itself remembers. Reports of paranormal activity at the Donnelly house are as chilling as the history that birthed them. Visitors often describe poltergeist phenomena, objects moving on their own, doors slamming shut without cause, and windows rattling violently as if struck by invisible hands. Many claim to hear disembodied screams echoing through the night, cries that sound like they come from the past, frozen in time. These sounds are said to mimic the very chaos of that terrible evening in 1880, when terror and violence consumed the family. Perhaps the most terrifying encounters involve full-bodied apparitions. Guests have seen shadowy figures lurking just beyond the tree line, drifting through the fields as though still guarding the land. Some describe a woman in a long, old-fashioned dress walking near the property, her face twisted in anguish. Others believe they have seen James Donnelly himself, his figure appearing and disappearing suddenly, as though he is still watching over the ruins of his home. Inside the reconstructed homestead, the activity intensifies. Cold spots appear without explanation, often near the fireplace where the family once gathered. Lights flicker, and visitors claim to hear whispers carried on the still air. One of the most unnerving accounts is of ghostly footsteps pacing across wooden floors, even when the building is empty. Staff and paranormal investigators alike have confirmed that the sound is unmistakable, measured, deliberate, and impossibly real. There are also reports of physical sensations that cannot be explained. Some visitors feel an unseen hand brush against their shoulder or tug at their clothing. Others experience sudden nausea, dizziness, or overwhelming sadness when stepping into certain rooms. It is as if the spirits of the Donnellys reach out to the living, desperate to make their story heard. People say they hear a young woman's terrified cries late at night, echoing through the fields. These accounts match the known history of Bridget's death, trapped and helpless in a wave of violence she could not escape. Her voice, it seems, is still carried on the wind, a ghostly reminder of her suffering. Though trials were held after the massacre, not a single member of the vigilante mob was ever convicted. The silence of the courts left the community divided, and the Donnellys' fate has remained one of Canada's most haunting tales of injustice. Some believe the spirits remain because they were denied peace in both life and death, their story twisted by rumors and left unresolved. The Donnelly house has since become a destination for those seeking to understand not only the violence of Canada's past, but also the strange persistence of the supernatural. Paranormal investigators often leave with recordings of unexplained voices, photographs of fleeting shadows, and experiences they cannot rationalize. Even skeptics have walked away shaken. The darkness of the Donnelly house is not one that can be easily dismissed. It is a place where history and the supernatural collide, where tragedy refuses to fade into the past. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the oppressive energy and countless eyewitness accounts cannot be ignored. To step onto the property is to step back into 1880. To feel the echoes of a night that forever scarred a community and left a family's restless spirits behind. In Lucan, the story of the Donnellys endures. The house may be gone, but its memory stands as a chilling monument to injustice and violence. Visitors walk away with the weight of history pressing on their shoulders and the lingering sense that they were not alone. The screams, shadows, and whispers all point to one truth. The Donnelly house remains one of the darkest, most haunted sites in Ontario, where the past refuses to rest and the spirits of the murdered family still reach out from beyond the grave. In the heart of Quebec City, surrounded by the echoes of one of Canada's bloodiest battles, stands a historic house known to many as the Plains of Abraham House. Its quiet facade, aged stone walls, and weathered windows suggest nothing more than an old home from another era. Yet to those who know its story, the house is a grim reminder of war, loss, and restless spirits that refuse to fade. For it is here, on the very soil where French and British soldiers clashed in 1759, that the echoes of violence still reverberate. The Battle of the Plains of Abraham marked a turning point in Canadian history. A brutal conflict between General James Wolfe of Britain and General Louis-Joseph de Montcalm of France. The encounter lasted less than an hour, but in that short span, the land was soaked in blood. Hundreds of soldiers perished on the fields surrounding Quebec City, their bodies hurriedly buried, their souls never at peace. The house, standing near this site, became a silent witness to the carnage, and locals believe it absorbed the grief, fear, and agony of those final moments. For centuries, residents and visitors alike have reported strange happenings within and around the old house. At night, when the streets grow still and the wind rattles through the narrow lanes of old Quebec, the sound of musket fire is said to echo across the grounds. Startled passers-by have paused, convinced they've heard the sharp crack of gunshots, followed by the shouts of men and the chilling screams of the dying. Yet, upon inspection, no one is ever there. The battlefield is quiet, but the ghosts of war seem determined to fight their battle again and again. Those brave enough to step inside the house have described an atmosphere thick with unease, as if unseen eyes are watching. Cold spots hover in hallways, and rooms fall silent when footsteps approach. Doors sometimes open and shut on their own, as though unseen soldiers are still moving through the structure. In the dead of night, shadowy figures have been seen pacing the grounds, dressed in the tattered remnants of military uniforms. Witnesses describe them as almost solid, until they vanish into thin air, like smoke on the breeze. The most unnerving encounters, however, occur inside the house itself. Visitors have sworn they heard men speaking in French, their voices hushed and urgent, as though plotting their next move. Others have reported hearing English commands barked sharply, echoing in rooms where no one stands. In one corner of the house, faint strains of a drumbeat have been heard, like the rhythm of marching soldiers preparing for battle. For some, the experiences are fleeting, a whisper, a sudden chill, a glimpse of a figure turning a corner. But for others, the spirits of the Plains of Abraham are anything but subtle. One chilling story tells of a caretaker who stayed overnight to watch the property. He awoke to the sound of boots stomping heavily through the corridor. Believing intruders had entered, he grabbed a flashlight and hurried out of his room, only to find the hallway empty. Still, the footsteps continued, circling him, moving from one end of the hall to the other. When the noise stopped, he noticed a faint smell of gunpowder lingering in the air. Shaken, he left before dawn and never returned. Another tale involves a group of tourists who entered the house on a guided visit. As they stood in one of the larger rooms, a sudden blast of cold air swept through, extinguishing the lantern their guide was carrying. In the darkness, several people reported seeing glowing figures near the windows, men in uniform, their faces pale and stricken with terror. The vision lasted only a few seconds before fading, leaving the group in stunned silence. Historians suggest that the proximity of the house to the battlefield is the source of the activity. Hundreds of men died violent deaths within sight of its walls, their final cries echoing across the land. Some believe the spirits are simply replaying their last moments, forever bound to the battleground where their lives were cut short. Others claim the house itself serves as a vessel, its walls soaked with the trauma of the past, making it a beacon for restless souls. The Plains of Abraham House today stands not just as a relic of the city's history, but also as a portal to its haunted legacy. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the weight of history cannot be ignored. Standing within its walls, one cannot help but feel the sorrow of the land outside, the invisible presence of men who fought bravely yet never left. At night, when the mist settles over Quebec City and the old battlefield grows quiet, the house seems to breathe with the echoes of the past. Musket fire cracks in the distance. Phantom soldiers march on their endless patrol, and the air grows heavy with the sense that the battle is never truly over. The Plains of Abraham House is more than a historic home. It is a haunted memorial, a place where the living walk side by side with the shadows of the dead. In the heart of Toronto's busy cityscape, surrounded by modern buildings and bustling streets, stands the George Brown House, an elegant 19th-century mansion with an air of timeless dignity. Built in 1876, this historic home was once the residence of George Brown, one of Canada's most influential politicians and a father of Confederation. Though today it is often admired for its stately architecture and historical importance, the house carries with it an atmosphere that unsettles those who enter. Beyond the marble fireplaces, ornate woodwork, and grand staircase, whispers tell of something else lingering in its halls, an unseen presence that has refused to leave. George Brown was a man of great ambition and influence, but also of fiery temperament. His role in shaping Canada's early political landscape earned him a place in history, but his personal story took a dark and tragic turn. In 1880, Brown was shot by a disgruntled former employee. Though the wound did not immediately kill him, complications from the injury led to his death weeks later. Some say his spirit, restless and unsatisfied, returned to the home he once cherished, unwilling to sever his ties to the world of the living. From the moment one steps inside, the house seems to breathe with a life of its own. Staff and visitors alike have reported an unsettling sensation of being watched, as though the walls themselves hold secrets that demand to be remembered. The grand rooms, often used for events and gatherings, take on an eerie stillness when empty. It is in these quiet moments that the spirits seem most active. Disembodied voices are heard drifting through the halls, sometimes muffled, sometimes clear, like conversations echoing from another time. People have turned corners expecting to find someone there, only to be met with empty air. One of the most haunting features of the George Brown House is the piano. In a room where sunlight filters through tall windows onto polished floors, the instrument stands in silent dignity. Yet silence is not always its state. More than one witness has heard faint notes being played when no one is seated at the keys. The music is often described as soft, melancholic, and fleeting, vanishing the moment anyone draws closer. Some believe this to be George Brown himself, returning to the music that once brought warmth to his household. Others suggest it is another lingering spirit, attempting to communicate through melody. Doors, too, have a will of their own within the mansion. Heavy wooden doors, the kind that should take effort to push or pull, have been known to slam shut with startling force, even when there is no draft to explain it. Guests attending events have felt sudden gusts of cold air sweep through the corridors, as if unseen figures were passing by in haste. Lights flicker, footsteps echo on staircases when no one is there, and shadows move against the walls, their forms human-like, yet insubstantial. Though much of the activity is mysterious, many are convinced that George Brown himself remains the central spirit tied to the house. Proud and meticulous in life, he may still patrol the rooms, watching over the legacy he built. Staff have spoken of feeling a stern presence, particularly in his old study. where papers once filled his desk and decisions that shaped a nation were made. Some describe an impression of disapproval, as if the former statesman is still scrutinizing those who now walk through his halls. There are also whispers of other spirits, perhaps connected to the home's long history beyond Brown himself. The building has served many purposes over the decades, including as offices for various organizations, and countless individuals have passed through its doors. Could some of these souls have left a piece of themselves behind? Reports of a woman's figure drifting through the upper floors suggest that not all of the house's spirits are political. Some guests claim to have seen her near windows, staring out as though waiting for someone to return. Her identity remains unknown, but her sorrow is felt deeply by those who encounter her presence. The atmosphere of the George Brown house is one of contradictions, grandeur and gloom, elegance and unease. During the day, when sunlight fills the rooms, it seems like a relic of Canada's proud history. But when night falls, shadows deepen, and the silence grows heavy, the building transforms into something else entirely. The air becomes charged, the walls seem closer, and those inside feel the weight of unseen eyes upon them. What makes the hauntings here so chilling is not the violence or terror often associated with ghost stories, but the subtle, relentless persistence of the activity. The spirits do not scream for attention. Instead, they whisper, watch, and remind the living that history is never truly gone. The George Brown house is more than just a preserved mansion. It's a place where the past breathes, where footsteps from long ago still echo, and where the legacy of one man and the countless souls who passed through continue to resonate in ways no one can fully explain. Colborne Lodge, nestled within the sprawling expanse of Toronto's High Park, is more than just a historic home. Built in the 1830s by architect John George Howard and his wife Jemima, the lodge was meant to be a place of peace and retreat from the growing bustle of the city. Today, it remains preserved as a museum and heritage site, but its legacy has long since expanded beyond the purely historical. Visitors and staff alike whisper of strange occurrences, ghostly apparitions, and an otherworldly presence that clings to the walls and grounds of the estate. Among Toronto's most haunted locations, Colborne Lodge has gained a reputation for the quiet but chilling paranormal phenomena that surround it. The story begins with John and Jemima themselves. John George Howard was a visionary, donating much of the land that would eventually become High Park. But life at Colborne Lodge was marked by deep tragedy. Jemima, John's beloved wife, suffered from a prolonged illness that kept her in isolation for much of her later life. Her death in 1877 left John devastated, and though he would live several more years, many believe he never fully recovered from the loss. It is said that Jemima's spirit lingered, bound to the home she had once walked in fragile health and quiet solitude. Those who have entered the house speak of sudden chills, as though an invisible hand has brushed past them. One of the most persistent reports is the appearance of Jemima herself. Her ghost is often described as a pale woman in a flowing gown, her presence fleeting, yet powerful. Visitors claim to glimpse her drifting silently across the parlors or standing in doorways, her sorrowful gaze fixed on unseen memories. At times, she is seen near the upstairs rooms where she spent much of her final days. A spectral figure tethered to the place where she once endured both life and decline. Cold drafts are another signature of Colborne Lodge. Even on warm summer days, guests have felt sharp, icy breezes sweep through the halls, often in places where no open windows or vents exist. These sudden chills are said to herald the presence of something unseen, as though Jemima's ghost moves through the lodge, leaving a trace of her spirit in the air. Some accounts suggest that the drafts carry with them a sense of melancholy, a lingering sadness that settles on anyone caught in their path. Adding to the unsettling atmosphere are the lodge's many paintings and portraits. The house is filled with art, much of it connected to John's career as an architect and artist. Yet visitors often claim that the paintings seem to follow them with their eyes, shifting subtly as if alive. It is not uncommon for guests to feel a wave of unease while standing alone in a room, only to notice that the painted figures appear to be staring directly at them. For some, this phenomenon is attributed to the tricks of light and shadow. But for others, it is proof that the spirits within Cockburn Lodge watch and wait. Staff working at the museum have their own share of stories. There are tales of footsteps echoing in empty corridors, of doors that slam shut without reason, and of faint whispers carried through the air. On more than one occasion, employees have locked the building for the night, only to return in the morning to find objects mysteriously moved, chairs pulled away from tables, or lights switched on, despite no one being inside. One particularly unsettling experience was reported by a tour guide who, while leading a group through the lodge, felt an overwhelming sense of dread as they ascended the staircase. Several guests later confirmed that they too had felt the same sudden heaviness, as though something unseen had crowded around them. Some insist that Jemima's ghost lingers near the stairs, retracing her steps over and over, unable to leave the home she once shared with her husband. Not all of the spectral activity is attributed to Jemima. Some believe that John himself still wanders the grounds of High Park, keeping watch over the land he gave to the city. On moonlit nights, figures have been spotted near the trees or pathways, only to vanish when approached. While Jemima's presence is associated with the interior of the lodge, John's spirit seems bound to the outdoors, his legacy as the park's benefactor etched into the very soil. Visitors who have come seeking history often leave with stories of the supernatural. For some, the experiences are subtler, sudden coldness, a faint shadow at the corner of their vision, a strange unease while standing in one of the upstairs rooms. For others, the encounters are much more direct, from full-bodied apparitions to sounds that cannot be explained. What unites all these accounts is a sense that Cockburn Lodge is not an ordinary heritage site, but a place where the veil between past and present grows thin. Cockburn Lodge stands as both a monument to Toronto's history and a reminder of the lives, loves, and losses that once unfolded within its walls. The haunting of the lodge is not one of terror or malevolence, but of sorrow and memory. Jemima's ghost, if it indeed walks the halls, seems to carry not anger, but a quiet grief, echoing the life she lived and the bond she shared with her husband. For those who dare to visit, Cockburn Lodge offers more than just a glimpse into 19th century life. It is a journey into the shadows of history, where the spirits of the past remain close, waiting to be felt by anyone who steps inside. In the whispers, the chills, and the flicker of movement in empty rooms, the legacy of John and Jemima Howard lives on, not just in the history books, but in the spectral presence that lingers still. The Governor's House in St. John's, Newfoundland, is a place where history and the supernatural seem to intertwine. Built in the early 19th century, the residence has long stood as a symbol of authority and elegance. It was constructed to house the governors of Newfoundland, men of influence and power who oversaw the colony and later the province. With its grand Georgian design, stately halls, and commanding presence overlooking the city, it has always been a building that carried an air of dignity. Yet behind its polished facade, whispers of ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena have followed the governor's house for generations, making it not just a historic site, but also a deeply haunted one. Those who have walked its halls often describe the sensation of being watched. Staff members, caretakers, and even guests on tours have spoken of an invisible presence lingering nearby, as though the walls themselves hold memories of those who once lived and worked within. The feeling is strongest in the upper floors, where the living quarters of governors and servants once existed side by side. Long after the last footsteps of the day have faded, the house refuses to remain silent. Echoes of movement ripple through the corridors, measured footsteps on wooden floors, a heavy tread that cannot be explained, following workers until they turn to find themselves alone. Among the most frequently reported encounters is the appearance of a shadowy figure believed to be that of a former servant. This apparition has been seen by more than one witness, often at the edge of a hallway or slipping into a room, only to vanish when followed. Dressed in simple clothing, the figure is thought to be tied to the building by a life of duty that never truly ended. The story suggests that in the days when the house was filled with the bustle of servants attending to governors and their guests, this individual may have met with an untimely end, or perhaps simply remained bound to the place through loyalty and routine. Whatever the reason, the servant seems destined to walk the house eternally, ensuring the needs of others are met, even in death. The atmosphere in certain rooms grows noticeably colder without explanation. Those who work within the governor's house describe sudden drafts that sweep through enclosed spaces, moments when the air seems to shift from comfortable to chilling in an instant. These icy gusts are often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of unease, as though someone unseen has entered the room. Paintings that line the walls, portraits of dignitaries, and figures from Newfoundland's past add to the eeriness on more than one occasion. Visitors have claimed that the eyes of the portraits follow them as they move, the stern gazes seeming almost alive, aware of every step taken inside the house. Doors have a habit of slamming shut without warning, even when no breeze is present. Staff recount times when rooms that were left carefully closed would suddenly open or shut themselves with startling force, leaving those nearby shaken. Some say this is the restless energy of those who once lived here, their tempers and emotions imprinted upon the very fabric of the building. Others believe the house itself has absorbed a long history of power, politics, and human struggle, releasing it in bursts of unexplainable activity. The governor's house also carries a heavy sense of time, as if the past lingers just out of sight. During the late hours, when the halls are dim and silent, there are reports of faint voices drifting through the corridors. These disembodied conversations are never clear enough to decipher, but their presence is undeniable. Some claim to hear the low murmur of men in heated discussion, perhaps echoes of political debates or decisions that once took place under its roof. Others describe softer tones, like the whisper of servants communicating quietly as they went about their duties. Each account reinforces the idea that the house is caught between eras, replaying fragments of a life long gone. What makes the governor's house particularly haunting is the way it blends grandeur with sorrow. As the official residence of authority, it was a place of formality, of power, and of strict hierarchy. Servants who worked tirelessly behind the scenes often lived difficult lives, and their struggles are believed to have left impressions strong enough to remain centuries later. The servant who appears most often may be only one of many souls tied to the house. Some visitors speak of multiple fleeting figures, shadows crossing staircases, or shapes glimpsed in peripheral vision. These moments, while brief, carry a weight that makes the house feel undeniably alive with something beyond the living. Even those skeptical of the supernatural find it hard to dismiss the overwhelming presence of the place. Guards and workers with no interest in ghost stories have admitted to leaving certain rooms quickly after feeling watched or touched by unseen hands. Lights flicker without cause, and faint knocks resound against walls with no source to be found. The accumulation of these experiences creates an environment that few can deny feels otherworldly. Today, the governor's house stands not just as a piece of Newfoundland's political history, but also as one of its most haunted landmarks. It serves as a reminder that power, service, and human emotion leave marks that do not fade easily. The elegant architecture may shine in daylight, but when darkness falls, the true spirit of the house awakens. In the silence of the night, footsteps echo where no one walks, doors open where no hand reaches, and the pale outline of a devoted servant lingers, still tending to duties that have outlived him. The governor's house is more than stone and wood. It is a vessel of memory, a dwelling for shadows, and a place where the past refuses to die. The Hearn generating station in Toronto is unlike most haunted places. It was never a hotel, nor a grand old house, nor even a battlefield. It was a power plant, a massive industrial beast of steel and concrete that once roared with life, supplying energy to the growing city. Today, though, it sits abandoned, its cavernous interior silent, except for the groans of shifting metal and the occasional echo that carries too far to be natural. Despite its utilitarian origins, or perhaps because of them, the Hearn has become one of the most unsettling and haunted structures in Canada. Built in the mid-20th century, The Hearn generating station was a marvel of engineering at the time. Its towering smokestack and enormous turbine hulls spoke of power and progress. Yet, as decades passed and technology moved forward, the plant was decommissioned, leaving behind a hulking shell. Now it stands as a relic, its walls streaked with rust, its vast chambers littered with debris, and its silence far more ominous than the noise it once contained. Explorers who dare to step inside describe the same immediate impression: the building feels wrong. It's not just abandoned, it's alive in a way it shouldn't be, as if its steel bones still remember the workers who once moved through its veins. The reports of ghostly activity inside the Hearn are striking for their consistency. Many who enter speak of shadow figures darting through the corridors, always at the edge of vision. In a building so large and dimly lit, it would be easy to dismiss these shapes as tricks of light, but witnesses insist that these figures are deliberate. They move with purpose, vanishing only when someone tries to follow. Some explorers claim that the shadows aren't simply human-shaped, but twisted, distorted, and larger than life, as if the Hearn has conjured up its own guardians from the darkness. Whispers are another recurring phenomenon. In a space so cavernous, the acoustics should make sound scatter and blur, but the voices reported here are clear, low, urgent murmurs that seem to come from just behind an explorer's ear. When they turn, no one is there. Some have even caught these whispers on recording devices, faint but distinct, as if fragments of long-forgotten conversations still linger in the air. Skeptics argue that the wind and the building's shifting metal could create strange noises, but believers say the whispers are too intentional, too personal, to be dismissed as chance. Perhaps most disturbing of all is the sensation of being followed. Nearly everyone who ventures deep into the Hearn describes it. Footsteps echo where no one walks. The sound of scuffing shoes trails behind until the listener stops. Then the footsteps stop too. Lights flicker from nowhere. Cold drafts push through sealed rooms, and an oppressive weight hangs in the air, as though unseen eyes are fixed on intruders. Some explorers leave after only a few minutes, unable to shake the dread of invisible company. The question is, why would a power plant be haunted? Unlike houses steeped in tragedy or hotels filled with decades of drama, the Hearn was a workplace. Yet work itself can carry its own echoes. The plant employed thousands over the years, and not all left it unscathed. Industrial accidents, while rarely publicized, were not uncommon in facilities of this kind. Stories circulate of workers who fell, were crushed, or electrocuted within these very walls. While the official record may be sparse, the whispered rumors suggest lives were indeed lost here. If that's true, perhaps the Hearn is not as empty as it looks. There's also the sheer atmosphere to consider. The Hearn is immense, with ceilings so high they disappear into darkness and halls that stretch endlessly. The human mind is not comfortable in spaces so vast and hollow. Our instincts tell us that emptiness hides predators, and in a place like this, the mind fills the silence with its own fears. But what makes the Hearn's legends linger is that the phenomena reported there go beyond imagination. Cameras glitch inside, batteries drain without explanation, and some photographs reveal shapes and figures that weren't visible at the time. It's as though the Hearn feeds on attention, rewarding those who come too close with glimpses of something just beyond comprehension. Those who have stood inside often describe a sensation that the building itself is watching. It's not just the ghosts of workers, not just echoes of the past. It's as if the Hearn has absorbed the energy of decades of operation, transforming into something sentient. Its walls groan not just with decay, but with awareness. Every shadow and whisper part of a consciousness that resents intrusion. Standing in its turbine hall, surrounded by darkness, broken only by slivers of light, it's easy to believe the Hearn has become more than a ruin. It is a machine that refuses to die, its spirit clinging to the skeleton of rust and steel. Whether the Hearn generating station is truly haunted or simply a monument to the eerie power of abandonment, it continues to draw attention. Paranormal investigators bring their equipment, thrill seekers sneak inside despite fences and warnings, and photographers capture its beauty, tinged with menace. Each leaves with the same impression that they were not alone, that the Hearn holds secrets it refuses to let go. In the end, the Hearn generating station is proof that not all hauntings need mansions, graveyards, or battlefields. Sometimes, the most terrifying spirits dwell in the places built for industry, where human effort and danger mixed for decades. In its empty silence, the Hearn has become a place where whispers echo, shadows walk, and the building itself seems alive. Those who have entered say it is not simply abandoned, is inhabited, and whatever dwells there, whether memory, ghost, or something else entirely, still walks the decaying halls of Toronto's most haunted industrial relic. Woodchester Mansion in Bracebridge, Ontario, is one of those places where time seems to hold its breath. Built in the late 1800s, the Gothic Revival home was once a proud symbol of wealth and ambition. Yet today it stands as a ruin, its broken windows and crumbling walls giving it the air of something forsaken. Locals whisper that the mansion is more than just a relic of a bygone era. It is a place burdened with sorrow, tragedy, and a darkness that refuses to let go. It is a house whose very stones seem to breathe with an energy that unsettles even the bravest visitors. The story of Woodchester begins with ambition, designed to reflect the prosperity of its owners. The mansion was a striking display of Victorian Gothic architecture. Grand archways, steep gables, and towering chimneys once made it a centerpiece of the community. But what should have been a legacy of success instead became a legacy of loss. Financial troubles, illness, and untimely deaths plagued the families associated with the house, and in time, many began to believe the property was cursed. As the decades passed and the mansion fell into ruin, stories of ghostly encounters began to circulate, weaving an aura of dread around its decaying frame. Visitors who dare to step inside describe the atmosphere as unbearably heavy, as if the walls themselves are pressing inward. Even in daylight, the mansion feels cloaked in gloom. Cold drafts whisper through broken corridors, though no open windows can explain them. Dust swirls in empty rooms, disturbed by movements no one can see. It is in this oppressive silence that the mansion begins to reveal its secrets. One of the most chilling phenomena reported is the sound of children crying. Witnesses claim that faint sobs drift through the halls, echoing off the cracked plaster. Some say the cries grow louder as night falls, rising into anguished wails that make the hair stand on end. There are no children in the abandoned structure, but the voices persist, leaving visitors to wonder who or what still lingers there. Theories abound. Perhaps the spirits of children who once lived in the mansion, or perhaps something darker, mimicking their voices as a lure. Alongside the weeping, doors have been known to slam without warning. Even in rooms where the doors hang barely on their hinges, they will swing shut with unnatural force, shaking the rotting frames. Many believe these violent movements are attempts by the spirits to drive intruders away. Others suggest it is the house itself reacting, as though the structure resents the presence of the living, disturbing its long slumber. Those who have stood in the mansion during one of these episodes describe the sound as deafening, reverberating through the entire house, followed by an oppressive silence that feels alive with unseen eyes. Then there are the apparitions. Through the shattered windows and shadowed hallways, figures have been glimpsed, moving just out of reach. Some are described as pale silhouettes drifting across rooms, vanishing when approached. Others appear more solid, their clothing tattered and unfamiliar, like echoes of another century. These figures never speak, but their presence is undeniable. One recurring account describes a woman in a long dress who stands at an upstairs window, gazing out toward the forest beyond. Witnesses say she fades like smoke the moment one tries to look directly at her. The belief that the mansion is cursed is fueled not just by these supernatural encounters, but by the building's history itself. Owners struggled to maintain it, often suffering personal misfortunes shortly after acquiring the property. Businesses failed, illnesses struck, and deaths followed. It seemed that no matter who held the deed, tragedy was never far behind. The mansion's eventual abandonment was seen not as neglect, but as a kind of surrender, as though no one could withstand the weight of its curse for long. Some paranormal investigators suggest that the house's energies are the result of residual hauntings, the imprint of sorrow and trauma left behind, replaying endlessly like a broken record. Others, however, believe there is something intelligent within the walls, something that interacts with those who dare to enter. The children's cries, the slamming doors, the shadowy figures, these are not passive echoes, but active warnings. Adding to the mansion's unsettling aura is the way the natural environment seems to conspire with it. On stormy nights, the skeletal frame of the house looms against the lightning, its jagged silhouette like a claw reaching into the sky. Owls perch in the rafters, their cries echoing through the broken halls, merging with the phantom sobs within. Even the forest surrounding the property feels ominous, its trees leaning toward the house, as though guarding or feeding it. Those who have visited Woodchester Mansion often leave with more than just stories. Some claim to feel watched for days afterward, as if something from the mansion followed them home. Others speak of vivid nightmares, of children standing at the foot of their beds, or of the house itself collapsing around them. It is as if the mansion imprints itself on all who cross its threshold, refusing to be forgotten. Woodchester Mansion may be a ruin, but it is far from lifeless. Its crumbling walls and broken glass conceal something that endures beyond death, something tied to the tragedies of its past and the darkness that seems to seep from its very foundations. Whether it is cursed, haunted, or simply a magnet for sorrow, one truth remains undeniable: those who step inside rarely leave unchanged. The Bell House in Halifax, Nova Scotia, is one of those places where history and haunting seem woven together in every beam, floorboard, and draft that creeps through the walls. From the outside, the house appears like many other aging homes of its time, a modest yet sturdy dwelling, weather-worn but enduring, carrying the marks of generations past. Yet those who have crossed its threshold know there is something unnatural about it. The house doesn't just sit in silence. It breathes, it shifts, and it remembers. For decades, stories have poured out of its rooms, stories of a restless presence that refuses to fade with the passing years. The Bell House first gained its sinister reputation in the mid-20th century, when tenants began reporting a strange series of disturbances. At first, it was subtle: a door opening when no one touched it, a faint tapping sound in the dead of night, or the unsettling sensation of being watched while walking up the narrow staircase. But what began as small anomalies grew into something much more alarming. Furniture would move without explanation, sometimes scraping violently across the wooden floors. Windows, tightly latched, would rattle so fiercely during calm weather that neighbors swore it sounded like a storm was battering the home. Objects disappeared only to reappear in impossible places, and voices echoed through the halls disembodied, calling out names or whispering words that could not be understood. What terrified residents most was that the disturbances seemed to react to them, almost as if the house itself, or whatever lingered within it, was aware of their presence. Those who tried to ignore the activity often found it escalating. Lights would flicker before plunging rooms into sudden darkness. Footsteps would approach down the hall with no one in sight, and heavy pounding would shake the walls until those inside fled in panic. Some reported being woken by the sound of breathing directly beside their bed, though when they opened their eyes, they were alone. The root of the Bell House's haunting is tied to local legend. According to stories passed down in Halifax, a tragic death occurred within its walls long ago. The tale speaks of a young woman who lived in the house during the early 1900s. Accounts vary, but most agree that she died suddenly and violently. Some say she fell down the staircase. Others whisper of darker possibilities involving heartbreak and betrayal. Whatever the truth, her death is believed to have left a stain upon the house, an echo of sorrow and rage that never dissipated. Many believe it is her spirit that prowls the rooms, expressing her grief and anger through the violent poltergeist activity that has defined the Bell House ever since. Over the decades, paranormal investigators and curious locals have tried to uncover the truth. Teams equipped with cameras and recorders have entered the house only to capture chilling evidence. Strange orbs of light, distorted voices on electronic recordings, and unexplained cold spots have been documented. One team claimed that during a late-night session, every door in the house slammed shut simultaneously, the force reverberating through the structure like thunder. Skeptics have visited, determined to disprove the stories, but many left shaken, unwilling to return. Even those who don't believe in ghosts admit there is something deeply unsettling about the Bell House. Residents of the neighborhood treat the house with a mix of fascination and caution. Children dare each other to step onto the porch at night, only to run screaming when the wind seems to whisper through the cracks. Older locals recall seeing figures in the windows when the house was supposed to be empty, shadowy outlines of a woman standing still, watching. Others claim that when they pass by late in the evening, they hear faint cries drifting into the street, as though the walls themselves are mourning. Inside the house, one of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sound of furniture dragging across the floor. Those who have stayed there describe waking in the middle of the night to a deep, grinding noise, as if heavy pieces are being shoved across the rooms. Yet, when they gather the courage to investigate, everything is exactly as it should be. The disembodied voices are just as unnerving. They do not always shout or scream. Often, they are low, almost conversational, like whispers exchanged just out of earshot. But occasionally, the voices call out directly, sometimes repeating the names of those inside the house, chilling them to the core. Some have wondered if the Bell House is not haunted by a single spirit, but by something darker, something that feeds on fear. The violent nature of the activity, the way it escalates in response to attention, and the oppressive feeling that settles on anyone who lingers too long all suggest a force not simply tied to tragedy, but to something more malevolent. Those who subscribe to this theory believe that the house itself may act as a vessel, amplifying and sustaining whatever presence lurks within. Despite its fearsome reputation, the Bell House still stands as a quiet monument in Halifax. The windows, often dark and empty, reflect the passing of time, while the walls hold secrets that may never be fully uncovered. To some, it is merely a house with old creaks and drafts. But to those who have heard the violent rattling of its windows, felt the chill of its unseen eyes, and fled from its echoing footsteps, it is something far more terrifying. The Bell House is not just haunted, it is alive in its own way, an entity of wood and stone that refuses to let go of the past. And those brave or foolish enough to enter may find themselves face to face with the restless energy that has lingered there for more than a century. Ravenscrag Mansion in Montreal, Quebec, is a building whose grandeur hides a deeply unsettling history. Originally constructed in the mid-19th century as the lavish home of Sir Hugh Allen, a shipping magnate and one of Canada's wealthiest men, the mansion was a symbol of wealth and influence. Its ornate architecture, sweeping staircases, and opulent rooms once hosted elite gatherings, filled with laughter, music, and the bustle of high society. Yet, beneath its elegant facade lies a history that has left the building steeped in shadows. A darkness that some claim never truly departed. After Allen's death, Ravenscrag went through several transformations. Most chilling was its involvement in the MK-Ultra experiments during the mid-20th century. These secretive programs, funded and orchestrated by intelligence agencies, sought to explore mind control through often brutal and unethical experiments on human subjects. For many, the mansion became less a home and more a place of torment. Patients and test subjects were reportedly confined within its walls, subjected to psychological and physical manipulation. The suffering they endured, coupled with the mansion's history as a site of wealth and power, created an atmosphere thick with unresolved anguish, one that visitors and staff claim can still be felt today. Accounts of paranormal activity at Ravenscrag are chilling and numerous. Shadows moving against the walls, always just at the corner of vision, are frequently reported. These forms are often described as humanoid, but indistinct, as though the mansion itself is shaping them from darkness. Witnesses speak of glimpsing figures flitting down hallways or standing silently in rooms, vanishing the moment they are directly observed. Many claim that these apparitions are not passive. They seem to watch, following with unseen eyes, and filling the air with a heavy sense of dread. Auditory phenomena are a common occurrence. Staff and visitors alike have reported screams echoing through empty hallways, sometimes soft, sometimes agonizingly loud. These wails are said to resemble those of someone in acute pain or fear, reverberating off the high ceilings and ornate woodwork. In other areas, whispers are heard, low and unintelligible, but unmistakably human. Some claim they can feel words brushing against their ears, though when they strain to hear clearly, the sounds vanish, leaving only silence. These experiences contribute to the feeling that Ravenscrag is alive in some way, feeding off the fear and attention of those who enter. Physical interactions with unseen entities are also reported. Doors are known to slam without warning, lights flicker inexplicably, and objects sometimes move of their own accord. Some visitors describe a sudden pressure against their chest, or the sensation of hands brushing along their arms, leaving chills in their wake. These manifestations are often strongest in the areas once used for experiments, where the energy of pain and fear was likely most concentrated. Paranormal investigators have noted cold spots, sudden drops in temperature, and electromagnetic anomalies in these rooms, further suggesting the presence of something beyond ordinary perception. The mansion's reputation has only grown over time. Locals tell tales of the spirits of tormented patients lingering, unable or unwilling to move on. Some claim that the suffering endured within Ravenscrag has imprinted itself on the building, creating a kind of residual haunting, replaying echoes of pain for anyone sensitive enough to perceive them. Others suggest that the spirits are not mere echoes, but conscious entities, aware of intruders and actively responding to the energy of the living. The combination of Ravenscrag's architectural majesty and its dark history creates a dissonance that unsettles even the most skeptical visitor. Even today, Ravenscrag Mansion draws attention not just for its historic significance, but for its eerie, haunted reputation. Researchers, paranormal enthusiasts, and thrill-seekers visit, hoping to catch a glimpse of a shadow, hear a whisper, or experience a chill that speaks to the mansion's tortured past. Cameras often malfunction inexplicably, and recordings sometimes capture distorted sounds or ghostly images. Visitors report leaving with an indelible sense that the mansion has observed them, a lingering impression that the walls themselves remember the suffering of those who were once trapped inside. Ravenscrag is a place where history and horror intertwine. Its elegant halls and lavish rooms are a stark contrast to the dark legacy hidden within its walls. The opulence of Sir Hugh Allen's former home now coexists with echoes of pain, fear, and unresolved spirits. To enter Ravenscrag Mansion is to confront not just the memory of wealth and power, but the lingering presence of human suffering, a reminder that some histories are never truly left behind. The mansion stands as both a monument and a warning, a place where the living can glimpse the shadows of the past and feel the lingering touch of those who never found peace. The Marr residence, standing quietly on 11th Street in Saskatoon, is not only a landmark of history, but also one of whispers, shadows, and things unseen. Built in 1884, it is the oldest building in the city, still on its original site, carrying within its wooden walls the legacy of the Marr family and the turbulent pioneer years that shaped the prairies. While it is celebrated as a rare surviving piece of Saskatoon's earliest days, many believe that the past has not entirely passed. Visitors, volunteers, and even casual passers-by report ghostly encounters that suggest the Marr family, and perhaps others who passed through the house, remain tied to the place for reasons both mysterious and sorrowful. The residence was originally built by Alexander Sandy Marr, a Scottish stonemason and carpenter who arrived in Saskatoon with his wife Margaret and their children during the early waves of settlement. The house itself is unassuming in design, simple clapboard siding, a peaked roof, and modest windows. Yet it stood firm through trials that tested the resilience of its occupants and neighbors alike. During the Northwest Rebellion of 1885, when tensions between the Indigenous peoples and the Canadian government escalated into armed conflict, the Marr residence became a makeshift field hospital for wounded soldiers. Its halls, once filled with the chatter of children and the rhythm of daily domestic life, echoed instead with groans of pain, hurried footsteps, and whispered prayers. Blood stained its floors, and fear clung to the air like smoke. It is perhaps here that the haunting of the house first took root, seeding a presence that never truly faded. Over the decades, the Marr family lived and died within those walls. Records show births, illnesses, and losses, all woven into the fabric of the home. When Sandy Marr passed away in 1932, the house remained as a relic of Saskatoon's earliest settlers. But even after the last of the family had gone, the house did not fall silent. Local legends grew that the Marrs, or some remnant of those who suffered within during the rebellion, still lingered, caught between eras. Visitors to the Marr residence today often remark on the strange sensations that come without warning. Volunteers working in the house have admitted to feeling watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every step. At night, when the house is empty, neighbors swear they have seen pale figures peering from the upstairs windows, their faces indistinct but their presence undeniable. Sometimes these shadowy apparitions vanish before the onlooker can blink, leaving the glass panes reflecting only the quiet darkness of the street. More unsettling still are the voices, soft murmurs, indistinct words, and sometimes the unmistakable sound of children crying have been heard when no one else is present. Some speculate these cries belong to the Marr children, bound forever to the home where they lived their short, fragile lives. Others believe the sounds may be echoes from the wounded soldiers of 1885, their pain imprinted into the walls and bleeding into the present. The slamming of doors has been reported as well, loud, forceful, and without explanation. Doors closed tight will suddenly bang open, as though unseen hands insist on making themselves known. One particularly eerie tale involves a caretaker who, while locking up for the night, swore he saw a woman in old-fashioned dress standing in the hallway. Believing it to be a visitor who had stayed behind, he called out to her, only to watch in shock as she turned, faded, and vanished before his eyes. Many think this figure may be Margaret Marr, still tending to her home, unwilling to abandon it even in death. Psychics and paranormal investigators who have visited the Marr residence describe a heavy energy, concentrated especially in the rooms that once served as makeshift wards during the rebellion. They claim the spirits of the wounded linger there, confused and restless, unwilling to accept that their suffering ended more than a century ago. Cold spots cluster in corners, shadows flicker across the walls, and at times, the air itself seems to pulse with a strange intensity, as though the house itself breathes. Yet, despite its ghostly reputation, the Marr residence remains an important touchstone of Saskatoon's identity. It is a reminder of the hardships faced by the city's first families, the upheaval of conflict, and the resilience of those who endured. Perhaps it is this layered history that binds the spirits so tightly to the place. Too much emotion, too much life and death woven into its foundations to ever truly let go. Those who walk past at night often pause to glance at the windows, half expecting to see the outline of a settler gazing back, trapped between worlds. For many, the Marr residence is more than a historic site. It is a house alive with memory, where the past refuses to be silenced. Whether it is the restless souls of soldiers, the watchful eyes of the Marr family, or something darker born of tragedy, the hauntings continue to draw curiosity and unease. The Marr residence stands as both a monument and a mystery. Its walls carry the whispers of history, its floors echo with footsteps of the unseen, and its windows invite the gaze of those who cannot leave. For some, it is a place of heritage. For others, it is a place of ghosts. But for all who encounter it, the old pioneer home leaves an impression that lingers long after they've stepped away. A chill reminder that the past is never truly gone. The Boyd House in Winnipeg, Manitoba, has long been a source of fascination and fear for those who dare to step inside. Built in the late 19th century, the home once stood as a proud example of Victorian architecture, with its steep gables, ornate woodwork, and stately presence. It was originally the residence of a prosperous family, a place filled with life, laughter, and the routines of everyday living. Yet today, Whispers of its haunted reputation eclipse its architectural beauty, and the Boyd House is spoken of in hushed tones as one of Winnipeg's most unsettling places. Many who enter describe the air itself as heavy, almost suffocating, as though an unseen force presses down on them the moment they cross the threshold. Visitors often feel drained, their energy sapped, and some even complain of sudden headaches or nausea, as if the house resists their presence. Long after they leave, some claim the oppressive energy lingers with them, like a shadow that refuses to lift. One of the most common reports involves strange lights flickering throughout the house. Glowing orbs are said to appear in empty rooms, sometimes floating near the ceilings, other times hovering just above the floorboards. Witnesses have described them as faint blue or green, shimmering like fireflies but colder and more deliberate in their movement. They are often seen darting around corners or vanishing the moment anyone approaches, leaving behind only the echo of silence and a deeper sense of dread. Shadow figures are another recurring phenomenon within the Boyd House. Guests and paranormal investigators alike have reported tall, dark shapes moving swiftly down hallways or standing motionless in doorways. At times, these forms seem human in outline, but they lack details, just silhouettes darker than the surrounding night. What makes them especially unsettling is that they appear even when the house is brightly lit, defying the logic of shadows cast by lamps or windows. Some visitors swear they have locked eyes with these figures, feeling an intense sense of malice emanating from their faceless forms before the entities vanish as quickly as they appeared. The physical experiences within the Boyd House are perhaps the most chilling of all. Many accounts speak of people being pushed, grabbed, or touched by invisible hands. A gentle tug on a sleeve when no one is nearby, a sudden shove on the staircase, or the icy pressure of fingers pressing against an arm. These are not isolated incidents, but recurring stories passed on by those who have dared to explore the home. Some have fled in terror after feeling a force deliberately preventing them from leaving a room, the door handle rattling violently in their grasp, as if something on the other side were determined to trap them within. The source of these hauntings is uncertain, but legends and theories abound. Some say the original family who lived there never truly left, their restless spirits tethered to the house by grief or tragedy. Tales circulate of untimely deaths, illness, accidents, and sorrow that marked the lives of those who once called the Boyd House home. Others believe the energy stems not from a single soul, but from layers of emotional residue, each generation leaving behind echoes of their struggles, arguments, and fears until the house itself became a vessel of sorrow and rage. Local lore tells of one particularly tragic event that might explain the home's unrest. It is said that a young servant once fell down the staircase, breaking her neck instantly. Some visitors claim they have heard her cries echoing through the halls, the sharp sound of footsteps on the stairs, followed by a sudden, sickening silence. Others believe she is the one responsible for tugging at sleeves or gently pushing from behind, forever repeating the moment that ended her life. The Boyd House has drawn the attention of paranormal investigators, and their findings only deepen the mystery. Recordings have captured unexplained voices, soft whispers calling out names, or anguished moans rising from empty rooms. Some teams have reported sudden spikes in electromagnetic readings, equipment malfunctioning without cause, and batteries draining in seconds, as though the energy in the house consumes electricity itself. Cameras set to record for hours have been found with corrupted footage, frames missing or warped into strange distortions that suggest interference from something unseen. Despite its ominous reputation, the Boyd House continues to attract thrill seekers, historians, and those hoping to glimpse the supernatural. Each new account adds to the growing legend, weaving the threads of fear, fascination, and mystery into the fabric of Winnipeg's ghost stories. While skeptics dismiss the tales as exaggerations or tricks of the mind, those who have experienced the Boyd House firsthand insist there is something undeniably real about its dark presence. Walking through its rooms, one cannot help but feel the weight of its history pressing close. The silence is too deep, the shadows too long, and the atmosphere too charged with something beyond explanation. The Boyd House does not simply feel haunted, it feels alive, as though the walls themselves are aware, watching and waiting for the next unsuspecting visitor to step inside. Whether it is the lingering sorrow of a family long gone, the restless spirit of a servant trapped in endless repetition, or something far older and darker, feeding off the energy of the living, the Boyd House remains one of Manitoba's most mysterious places. To enter it is to risk more than a simple scare. It is to confront the possibility that some spaces hold memories so strong they refuse to fade, and that the dead sometimes find ways to remain among the living. The Bell Mansion in Fort Erie, Ontario, carries with it the weight of a violent past, its foundations steeped in the blood and echoes of the War of 1812. Standing with a stately presence, yet wrapped in a somber aura, the mansion has become one of Ontario's most unnerving historical sites. To some, it is a proud reminder of the town's military heritage, but to others, it is a place where the veil between the living and the dead wears thin. Its walls, hallways, and darkened corners seem to breathe with unseen life, and countless visitors have claimed that the Bell Mansion is haunted not by one ghost, but by an entire army of restless souls. The mansion's ties to the War of 1812 are at the heart of its haunted reputation. Fort Erie itself was a site of brutal battles between British and American forces, leaving behind carnage that still stains the soil. The Bell family, who owned the home in the years following the war, would have been all too aware of the bloodshed that had taken place on the land. It is said that the mansion was used, at least briefly, as a makeshift field hospital. Soldiers, both friend and foe, were carried through its doors, their moans and cries of pain echoing through the corridors as surgeons fought to save lives. Many never left alive, and some say their spirits never left at all. Visitors to the mansion describe strange encounters that seem directly tied to this bloody chapter of history. On some nights, phantom candlelight is seen flickering through the upstairs windows when no one is inside. Locals swear they have watched a soft, wavering glow of flames move from one room to another, as if someone were carrying a lantern or candle down the hall. Yet, upon inspection, the mansion is found to be empty and dark. Paranormal investigators believe these lights may be the residual echoes of soldiers or doctors moving through the home, their last desperate hours replaying endlessly in spectral form. The sounds are often the most chilling part of the Bell Mansion's legacy. Residents and overnight guests have reported hearing blood-curdling screams that seem to come from the very walls themselves. The cries are said to be so loud and piercing that they freeze listeners in place, as though the house itself is forcing them to relive the pain of the past. More than once, the sounds of gunfire and heavy boots have been heard thundering across the wooden floors, as if a battle is still raging within. Even when visitors know they are alone, the echo of footsteps follows them from room to room, accompanied by an icy chill that settles in the air. Ghostly soldiers are among the most frequently reported apparitions. Several witnesses describe seeing figures in old military uniforms standing motionless in the hallways or on the grounds. Their faces are often obscured by shadow, their outlines blurry, like smoke hanging in the air. One commonly told account is of a lone soldier spotted standing in the mansion's doorway, staring silently outward, only to vanish when anyone approaches. On the lawn outside, groups of figures have been glimpsed, moving in formation, as if troops are still patrolling, eternally bound to the site where they fell. But the hauntings are not limited to spectral soldiers. Some claim that members of the Bell family themselves linger within the house. Whispers are heard in empty rooms, voices low and urgent, as though family conversations from a bygone era continue on an endless loop. A woman's soft sobbing has been heard in the upstairs bedrooms, leading some to believe that one of the Bells, perhaps a grieving widow, remains tied to the home. There are even tales of objects moving on their own, as though unseen hands are still tending to the household, keeping the routines alive long after the living moved on. The atmosphere inside the Bell Mansion is said to be suffocating. Many who enter speak of a heavy weight pressing down on them, making it difficult to breathe. This oppressive energy grows stronger in certain rooms, particularly those thought to have been used as sick bays during the war. People report feeling touched, pushed, or even shoved by invisible forces. Some claim that the spirits are not merely residual echoes of the past, but intelligent presences, aware of the living, and sometimes hostile toward them. Those who linger too long in the mansion often leave feeling drained, as though the house has taken a piece of their energy for itself. Locals in Fort Erie approach the Bell Mansion with a mixture of pride and caution. It is a place that connects the community to its history, yet it also serves as a grim reminder of the cost of war and the suffering it left behind. Ghost tours and paranormal groups continue to be drawn to the mansion, hoping to capture evidence of the spirits that are said to roam its halls. While some skeptics insist the stories are nothing more than folklore, the sheer number of independent reports, lights, screams, apparitions has solidified the mansion's reputation as one of Ontario's most haunted homes. The Bell Mansion remains a structure of paradox, both a monument to resilience and a vessel of tragedy. It stands as a place where time seems to fold in on itself, trapping the cries of the dying and the shadows of soldiers in an endless replay. Whether one views the mansion as cursed or as sacred ground, it is undeniable that stepping inside is like stepping into another era, an era that refuses to let go. For those brave enough to enter, the Bell Mansion offers not just a glimpse into history, but a chilling encounter with the ghosts that history left behind. Alexander Keith's Brewery House in Halifax, Nova Scotia, is famous across Canada for its beer. But beyond the frothy ales and lively tours, the building carries a far darker, more mysterious reputation. Established in the early 19th century by Alexander Keith, one of Halifax's most renowned brewers, the house and adjoining brewery have witnessed decades of industry, family life, and, as many believe, restless spirits. While visitors often come expecting to enjoy the history of brewing and sample the signature ale, some leave with stories of unexplained sounds, chilling encounters, and the unnerving sensation of being watched by someone who never truly left. The paranormal activity at the brewery house is centered largely in the cellar, a cavernous space where barrels of ale once rested, and where the labor of brewing was most intense. Staff and visitors alike report hearing the unmistakable sound of footsteps on wooden floors when no one else is present. These footsteps are often slow, deliberate, and heavy, echoing as though someone is pacing with purpose. Many say the steps move from one end of the cellar to the other, fading into silence only to return moments later. Some witnesses swear the footsteps follow them as they walk, stopping when they stop, resuming when they move, as if the unseen presence is tracking their every step. Another recurring phenomenon involves the barrels themselves. In the quietest hours, people have reported hearing the low rumble of barrels rolling across the floors, as though someone is moving them manually. Yet, when the room is inspected, the barrels remain neatly in place, untouched by human hands. Some describe hearing the faint creaking of the wooden structures and the clatter of iron hoops striking the floor. The noises are unnervingly lifelike, creating the impression that someone is working in the cellar long after the brewery has closed for the night. Many believe that the source of these occurrences is Alexander Keith himself. Born in 1795, Keith was a larger-than-life figure in Halifax, known not only for his brewing, but also for his commanding presence and strict standards. He lived in the house adjacent to the brewery, and legend holds that he took a deeply personal interest in every aspect of the operation. Those familiar with the stories say that Keith was meticulous to the point of obsession, inspecting barrels, tasting ale, and ensuring the brewery maintained the highest quality. Some speculate that such dedication has bound his spirit to the building, lingering to oversee the legacy he worked so hard to build. Witnesses describe other subtle signs of a presence. Cold drafts sweep through rooms that should be warm, particularly near the cellar stairs, creating an uncomfortable chill even in the summer months. Lights flicker without electrical cause, and shadows seem to move just at the edge of vision. Employees have reported feeling sudden pressure on their shoulders, or the sense of being tapped lightly on the back when no one is near. Some guests have even claimed that when they raise their cameras to take photographs, the images come back distorted or darkened, with unexplained orbs hovering near the cellar corners. The history of the brewery and Keith's life adds layers to the haunting. The early 1800s were not kind to brewers. Fires, illness, and economic uncertainty were constant threats. Keith himself faced setbacks and rivalries, and some suggest that the stress and intensity of his life may have left emotional residue on the building. The cellar, in particular, was a place of laborious, exhausting work, and it is easy to imagine that such energy, hope, pride, frustration, and determination could linger long after those who generated it have passed. One especially chilling account comes from a tour guide who had worked at the brewery for several years. Late one night, while performing a routine check of the building, she reported hearing footsteps descending the cellar stairs. Thinking it was a maintenance worker, she called out, but no one answered. She proceeded down the stairs and was met with an icy draft and the faintest scent of malt and hops lingering in the air. As she entered the main cellar room, she saw the shadows of barrels rolling slightly, though the floor was completely empty. The sounds of footsteps continued to circle around her, and a low creaking of wood echoed across the room. The guide hurried out, convinced that Keith's vigilant spirit was ensuring the cellar was in order. Other visitors have reported seeing fleeting shapes at the top of the cellar stairs. Described as a tall man in period clothing, his features blurred, but his posture unmistakably authoritative. Some claim he watches silently for a few moments before disappearing into the shadows. Those who experience these visions often feel an odd mixture of fear and reassurance, as though the presence is both protective and admonishing. A caretaker who cannot let go of the place he loved in life, despite its paranormal reputation, Alexander Keith's Brewery House continues to welcome visitors, drawing curiosity seekers as well as beer enthusiasts. Ghost tours are now a popular attraction, with guides recounting the stories of phantom footsteps, moving barrels, and the ever-watchful brewer. Skeptics may dismiss the experiences as imagination or overactive senses. Yet the sheer consistency of reports over decades suggests that something unexplained lingers in the brewery's halls. The house remains a living piece of history, where the legacy of Alexander Keith is etched, not only in recipes and craftsmanship, but in something far less tangible, a presence that endures beyond the grave. For those who enter, the experience is more than a tour. It is a brush with the unseen, a moment where the past and present coexist in uneasy harmony. The echoes of footsteps, the faint rustle of barrels, and the whisper of unseen eyes serve as constant reminders that some spirits are not content to rest, and that the life of Alexander Keith may continue to watch over the brewery, ensuring that his name and his isle live on forever. Redpath Mansion in Montreal, Quebec, stands as a chilling monument to a dark and violent past. Built in the late 19th century, the house was once a symbol of wealth and social prominence, its elegant architecture and sprawling rooms reflecting the stature of the Redpath family. Yet that image of refinement was shattered in 1901, when a shocking double murder occurred within its walls. The gruesome event left a scar not only on the mansion itself, but also on the surrounding neighborhood. Locals and visitors alike claim that the echoes of that night continue to haunt the property, making Redpath Mansion one of Montreal's most notorious haunted locations. The murders themselves remain the stuff of legend. On a cold winter evening, 2 members of the Redpath household were brutally slain under circumstances that remain murky to this day. Rumors swirled that jealousy, betrayal, or a botched robbery might have been the motive, but no definitive answer ever emerged. Since that night, neighbors have reported seeing ghostly silhouettes in the mansion's windows, figures that appear fleetingly and vanish when looked at directly. Some say the spirits are trapped in a perpetual reenactment of that fateful evening, while others believe the house itself has absorbed the trauma, projecting it outward for anyone who ventures too close. The atmosphere around Redpath Mansion is heavy with unease. Visitors and passersby often describe a feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow every movement. The air seems colder near the house, with sudden gusts of wind or icy drafts appearing without cause. Locals frequently report strange knocks echoing from inside, even when the mansion is empty. These knocks are sometimes rhythmic, almost deliberate, as if a ghostly inhabitant is attempting to communicate or warn intruders away. Whispers, indistinct and low, are another common phenomenon. People who linger near the mansion have described hearing voices calling their names, murmuring incomprehensible phrases, or even mimicking their own words in a distorted fashion. Inside the mansion, the activity is even more pronounced. Those brave enough to step over the threshold speak of cold spots that chill to the bone, furniture that shifts on its own, and doors that creak open or slam shut without warning. Some report seeing fleeting glimpses of figures in period clothing gliding through the hallways, their faces pale and indistinct. In certain rooms, the sense of dread is so overwhelming that visitors feel an almost physical pressure, as if the house itself is pushing them out. Paranormal investigators have noted irregular electromagnetic readings and temperature fluctuations throughout the building, suggesting that some form of energy residual or conscious is still present. Eyewitnesses often describe encounters that are deeply personal and unsettling. One visitor recalled looking through a window at twilight and seeing two shadowy figures standing silently in the parlor, their faces hidden but their posture unmistakably human. Moments later, they vanished, leaving the room cold and silent. Another person reported hearing a low, mournful cry echoing through the empty halls late at night, a sound that seemed to move from room to room, always just out of reach. Those who experience these phenomena frequently describe a sensation of dread that lingers long after leaving the property, as though the mansion has left a part of itself behind in their memory. Local lore suggests that the spirits of the murdered occupants remain trapped within the mansion, unable to move on due to the violent nature of their deaths. Some believe that their presence is protective, warning intruders to stay away, while others suggest that the energy is restless and vengeful, replaying the trauma of that night over and over. The duality of fear and fascination has drawn countless visitors, from paranormal enthusiasts to curious tourists, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the spectral figures or hear the haunting sounds firsthand. Despite, or perhaps because of its sinister reputation, Redpath Mansion has remained a point of intrigue in Montreal. Its architectural beauty and historical significance cannot erase the horror embedded in its walls. Tours and investigations of the mansion often reveal inexplicable phenomena, from flickering lights and objects moving independently to shadowy apparitions and the persistent feeling of being watched. Photographs sometimes capture ghostly forms, while audio recordings pick up whispers and faint footsteps where none should exist. These experiences reinforce the mansion's reputation as a site where the past and present collide in the most unsettling ways. Over a century has passed since the murders, yet the house retains its aura of fear and mystery. Neighbors continue to report sightings, sounds, and sensations associated with the tragic events of 1901. Even during the day, the mansion exudes an uneasy presence, its windows like watchful eyes, and its darkened rooms hinting at secrets better left undisturbed. The Redpath Mansion stands as a reminder that some histories refuse to fade, that violence and tragedy leave a permanent mark, and that the spirits of those wronged may linger far longer than the living. For anyone daring enough to approach, Redpath Mansion is both a historical curiosity and a chilling encounter with the unknown. The echo of footsteps, the whisper of voices, and the fleeting silhouettes in the windows serve as a stark warning. Within these walls, the past is never truly gone, and some souls are destined to remain forever unsettled. Visiting the mansion is not merely a tour of a historic home, it is an experience of lingering dread, a brush with the unresolved, and a chance to witness firsthand the echoes of tragedy that continue to haunt Montreal's storied streets. Montmorency Falls Manor, perched above the roaring waters of Quebec's famous falls, is a place where natural beauty meets chilling legend. The manor itself is elegant, its stately architecture and sweeping terraces offering breathtaking views of the cascading waters below. Yet behind its grandeur lies a story of tragedy that has left an indelible mark on the estate, a tale that continues to unsettle visitors and locals alike. The manor is said to be haunted by the spirit of a bride, A young woman who leapt to her death in despair after her was unexpectedly killed, leaving her heartbroken and inconsolable. Her sorrow has not faded with time. Instead, it lingers in the halls, gardens, and pathways of the property, manifesting in ways that terrify and mesmerize those who dare to enter. The story begins in the late 19th century, when the manor was the site of lavish social gatherings, balls, and celebrations. The bride-to-be, known for her beauty and vivacity, was eagerly preparing for her wedding. Friends and family had gathered in anticipation of the joyous occasion. Yet happiness turned to horror when her young man of wealth and influence was killed in a sudden and violent accident days before the ceremony. The news devastated the young woman, and in her grief, she retreated to the manor, unable to cope with the loss. One fateful night, she climbed to the edge of the falls and threw herself into the icy, turbulent waters below. Her tragic death marked the manor forever, embedding an aura of sorrow and loss that seems to linger to this day. Those who visit Montmorency Falls Manor report feeling an almost tangible sadness in the air. The temperature often drops unexpectedly, and a heavy, oppressive atmosphere settles over certain rooms and corridors. Visitors speak of hearing faint footsteps on empty staircases, or the soft rustle of silk across polished floors, as if someone in mourning still roams the halls. Some claim to have glimpsed a figure in white, her long gown trailing behind her, moving silently through the manor before vanishing without a trace. This spectral bride is said to appear most often on stormy nights, when the wind and rain seem to carry her mournful cries, echoing across the grounds and mixing with the roar of the falls. Auditory phenomena are common around the manor. Guests report hearing sudden sobs or low wails that appear to come from nowhere, chilling them to the bone. Whispered conversations are sometimes heard in hallways, though no one is present, and doors can be heard creaking open and slamming shut without explanation. Even the gardens and terraces, usually serene and inviting, are said to host eerie sounds, the soft click of shoes along stone paths, the whisper of a veil in the wind, and the unmistakable feeling that someone is watching. Locals suggest that the bride's spirit cannot leave the place where she last felt happiness and heartbreak, making the manor and its grounds a permanent stage for her sorrow. Sightings of the spectral bride are often accompanied by other strange occurrences. Guests describe objects moving inexplicably, such as chairs tipping over or flowers being knocked from vases, though no one is nearby. Candles flicker and extinguish without reason, and cold drafts sweep through rooms even when doors and windows are closed. Those who have witnessed her apparition report an overwhelming sense of grief, a heaviness that seems to press against the chest and settle in the mind. The intensity of her presence has led some to speculate that she is not merely a ghost, but a consciousness trapped between worlds, replaying the trauma of her untimely death for all who enter. The grounds surrounding Montmorency Falls Manor are no less haunted. Visitors walking near the edge of the falls speak of sudden chills and the feeling of invisible hands brushing their arms. On stormy evenings, the roar of the falls blends with ghostly cries, creating an unnerving harmony that can be heard for miles. Some have reported seeing a faint, glowing figure at the brink of the falls, poised in a moment of eternal despair. Others recount glimpsing a woman in white moving through the trees, her form partially obscured by mist, only to vanish when approached. These experiences suggest that the manor's haunting is not confined to its interior. The land itself seems to carry the weight of tragedy. The history of Montmorency Falls Manor, combined with its natural beauty and dramatic location, creates a compelling and eerie setting. Visitors often find themselves caught between awe and fear, drawn to the majestic vistas while simultaneously sensing the lingering presence of the bride. Paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained sounds and temperature anomalies, and some claim to have captured faint, shadowy figures on camera. Others report feelings of being followed or watched, even when alone, further reinforcing the notion that the manor is inhabited by more than memory alone. Despite tour, perhaps because of its haunted reputation, Montmorency Falls Manor continues to attract those intrigued by the supernatural. Some come, seeking the thrill of encountering the spectral bride, while others hope to experience firsthand the legends that have passed through generations. Every visitor leaves with a story. A sudden chill, a whispered sob, a glimpse of a pale figure on the terrace, or the echo of mournful cries over the falls. The manor's tragic past has been etched into its very structure, a permanent reminder that sorrow and loss can linger far beyond death. Montmorency Falls Manor stands as a testament to beauty entwined with tragedy. The spectral bride, as mournful presence, transforms the estate from a picturesque location into a site of haunting and memory. It is a place where nature and human emotion intertwine, where the roar of the falls echoes the grief that has never faded, and where visitors are reminded that some stories never truly end. Those who approach the manor do so with the knowledge that they may encounter more than stone and wood. They may encounter the lingering spirit of love lost and a sorrow that refuses to rest. Bailey Croy House, nestled in the rural landscapes of Prince Edward Island, is a place where history and mystery intertwine in ways that unsettle even the most skeptical visitors. The home, with its classic architecture and quiet, sprawling grounds, appears peaceful by day, bathed in sunlight and framed by rolling fields. Yet by night, Bailey Croy House reveals a far darker side. Local residents and those who have dared to enter recount encounters with ghostly lights flickering through the windows, inexplicable cold spots, and strange apparitions that vanish the moment they are noticed. The house carries an air of lingering sorrow, a residue of sudden deaths and tragic events that have left a permanent imprint on its walls. The history of Bailey Croy House is marked by a series of untimely deaths, some sudden and others shrouded in mystery. Families who lived there over generations experienced unexplained tragedies, with members passing unexpectedly or under circumstances never fully explained. These events left a heavy shadow over the home, and it is said that their emotional intensity became trapped within the structure itself. Locals whisper that the house has absorbed the grief, pain, and confusion of its former inhabitants, replaying these energies for anyone who steps across its threshold. Those who have entered often describe an immediate sensation of unease, as though the very air carries a weight that presses upon the chest and slows the breath. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Bailey Croy House is the appearance of ghostly lights. Witnesses describe faint glows in windows where no lamps are present, lights that flicker and pulse as if searching for attention. Sometimes the lights drift through the hallways or across the ceilings, appearing in multiple rooms at once, only to vanish without warning. Some suggest that these luminous manifestations are echoes of past residents, moving about the house as they once did in life. Others believe the lights are drawn to the living, reacting to presence and curiosity, a spectral acknowledgement of those who dare to intrude upon their domain. Furniture in Bailey Croy House often exhibits its own eerie behavior. Chairs have been known to tilt, tables to shift slightly across floors, and doors to swing open or slam shut without any human cause. Residents and visitors alike report objects moving while their backs are turned, often accompanied by a chill that raises goosebumps on the skin. These manifestations are especially pronounced at night, when the home's silence amplifies every creak and whisper. Some claim that the furniture movements are not malevolent, but rather restless residual energy seeking expression through the physical environment, a reminder that the house is never truly empty. Cold spots are another hallmark of the Bailey Croy experience. These sudden drops in temperature often occur in specific rooms or hallways, lingering long enough to be deeply felt. Guests have described walking through a corridor and feeling as though an invisible hand brushes along their shoulder or back, an unsettling presence that vanishes when attention is fully given. The chills can intensify near areas associated with past deaths, as if the house itself reserves the most profound energies for places where life once ended abruptly. Paranormal investigators have noted that these cold spots often correlate with electromagnetic anomalies, suggesting a link between the house's emotional history and measurable environmental disturbances. Apparitions 2 are reported frequently at Ballycroy House. Witnesses describe shadowy figures flitting through hallways or standing silently at the end of a room. Faces are rarely seen clearly, but the presence is unmistakable. A human form with an intent gaze, observing or following without interaction. Some claim to have seen a figure seated at the dining table, disappearing the instant a camera is raised or a light is turned on. Others report hearing footsteps pacing in empty rooms, or soft, mournful sighs echoing through the house late at night. The spirits are rarely aggressive, but their presence is profoundly unsettling. A reminder that Ballycroy House is a space shared between the living and the dead. Local lore suggests that the house's haunting is tied directly to its history of sudden deaths. Generations of families experience the kind of tragedies that leave a lasting emotional mark. Events so intense that the energy refuses to dissipate. Residents believe that the house functions almost like a mirror of the past, replaying grief, sorrow, and restless movement for those who enter. Visitors often report a growing sense of familiarity with the apparitions over time, as if the spirits recognize repeated intrusions and respond with increased activity, creating an interactive haunting that blurs the line between history and the present. Those who spend time in Ballycroy House often leave with stories that are impossible to ignore. Some describe seeing lights that move independently of any logical source, feeling icy drafts in rooms that are perfectly sealed, or witnessing shadows that behave with intent and awareness. Others recount the sensation of unseen hands guiding them through hallways or pressing lightly against their arms. Even casual observers sense the presence of the house's tragic history, and few can claim to leave without a lingering sense of unease. Despite or perhaps because of its unsettling reputation, Ballycroy House draws the curious and the brave. Paranormal enthusiasts, historians, and thrill-seekers visit, hoping to witness the lights, feel the cold spots, or catch a glimpse of a spectral figure. Every visitor adds their own experience to the tapestry of stories, reinforcing the house's reputation as a place where the past and present coexist in ways that are both beautiful and terrifying. Ballycroy House stands today as more than just a rural home. It is a testament to the weight of human emotion, the echoes of grief, and the indelible mark of sudden tragedy. The ghostly lights, moving furniture, icy corridors, and shadowy figures all serve as reminders that some histories cannot be forgotten, and some souls remain tethered to the places where their stories ended. To enter Ballycroy House is to step into a space where time blurs, where the boundary between life and death is fragile, and where the past continues to speak to anyone who dares to listen. St. Louis House, situated in the small town of St. Louis, Saskatchewan, is a place where ordinary life brushes against the extraordinary, and where the line between reality and the supernatural often blurs. Locals speak of the house in hushed tones, aware of its eerie connection to the famous St. Louis ghost train phenomenon, while the spectral train on the abandoned railway tracks draws attention from curious visitors and thrill-seekers. St. Louis House stands as a quieter, yet equally unsettling, testament to the paranormal energy that permeates the area. Its reputation has grown over the years, fueled by numerous reports of glowing orbs, shadowy figures, and inexplicable activity that seem to defy logic. The origins of St. Louis House's haunting are uncertain, but many believe they are tied to the area's tragic history. Saskatchewan's railways were once lifelines for settlers and workers, but accidents, sudden deaths, and untimely tragedies along the tracks left an imprint on the land. Some speculate that the restless spirits of those who died in these events are drawn to the house, seeking refuge or reliving moments of terror. Others think that the house itself, with its aged structure and creaking floors, acts as a magnet for lingering energy, amplifying any residual paranormal activity nearby. Regardless of the reason, visitors and locals alike report a consistent pattern of ghostly encounters that make St. Louis House one of the most unsettling locations in the province. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at St. Louis House is the appearance of glowing orbs. These small, Luminous spheres are often seen drifting silently through the hallways or hovering in corners of rooms. They vary in size and brightness, sometimes pulsing with a faint, almost lifelike rhythm. Witnesses describe feeling a sense of presence when the orbs appear, as if they are aware of being observed. Some have attempted to follow them, only to watch them vanish into thin air, leaving no trace of where they went. Photographs taken inside the house occasionally capture these orbs, further confirming their reality to those who are open to the paranormal. Shadowy figures are another common feature of the house's hauntings. Windows, especially those on the upper floors, are said to be the vantage points for these dark silhouettes. Witnesses describe seeing human-shaped forms peering out at night, their movements subtle but deliberate. The house often appears empty, yet the feeling of being watched is pervasive, and those who look too closely often find the shadows have disappeared. Some guests have reported seeing the figures move across rooms, only to vanish when approached, leaving behind an icy chill in the air and an unsettling sense that someone or something is still present. Inside the house, the paranormal activity extends beyond lights and shadows. Cold spots form suddenly, chilling visitors to the bone, and furniture sometimes shifts without explanation. Doors may open or close on their own, and faint whispers seem to drift through empty corridors. The sounds are not always distinguishable. Sometimes they are soft murmurs, and other times they resemble voices calling out names that belong to no one present. This auditory phenomenon adds a layer of tension to the already heavy atmosphere, making it clear that the house is not a place of normal habitation. The connection between St. Louis House and the ghost train phenomenon only heightens the eeriness. On certain nights, residents have reported seeing the glowing orbs move in patterns that mimic the lights of the spectral train, as though the spirits are extending the railroad's legacy into the house itself. The faint rumble of an unseen engine or the distant echo of train whistles has been noted by those inside, blurring the boundary between what is real and what is supernatural. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena creates an immersive and unsettling experience, reinforcing the house's reputation as a site where the paranormal is not only present but active. Some encounters are deeply personal and intense. Visitors have described sudden feelings of dread upon entering specific rooms, as if unseen eyes are studying them. Others have recounted fleeting sensations of being touched by invisible hands, or the unmistakable feeling of being followed from room to room. These experiences often leave a lasting impression, and many report lingering unease long after leaving the property. Locals suggest that the spirits inhabiting the house are tied to past trauma, replaying moments of fear or unrest for anyone who enters, creating an atmosphere where the living are confronted with echoes of the past. The house's exterior is equally evocative. Even in daylight, there is an almost tangible sense of history pressing against the walls. Windows, weathered and slightly warped, sometimes appear to reflect more than just the surrounding landscape. At night, faint lights can be seen flickering within, despite the house being unoccupied. Neighbors and passersby have occasionally reported hearing footsteps on the front porch or the distant creak of boards in the attic, sounds that vanish when investigated. These subtle, persistent disturbances contribute to the house's aura of mystery and fear. Over time, St. Louis House has become a magnet for those intrigued by the supernatural. Paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and historians visit in hopes of experiencing the phenomena firsthand. Some are drawn by curiosity, others by the desire to document the inexplicable. Yet almost all leave with stories of strange lights, shadowy forms, and the pervasive feeling that they were never truly alone. The house, it seems, retains a watchful presence, observing all who enter while keeping its secrets tightly guarded. St. Louis House stands today as a quiet yet powerful reminder that some places carry the weight of history and tragedy in ways that go beyond mere memory. Its glowing orbs, shadowy figures, and unexplained sounds serve as constant reminders that the spirits of the past linger, tethered to the home by circumstance, emotion, or unresolved unrest. Visitors approach with caution, aware that stepping inside is more than a physical act. It is an encounter with the unknown, a brush with energy that has persisted for generations, and a chance to witness the supernatural echoes of St. Louis's haunted legacy. The Chateau Laurier apartment in Ottawa, Ontario, carries an air of elegance and history. Yet beneath its refined exterior lies a lingering presence that few dare to ignore. Linked to the iconic Chateau Laurier Hotel, the residence is said to harbor the spirit of Charles Melville Hayes, the ambitious and visionary man who commissioned the hotel but tragically perished aboard the Titanic in 1912. While the hotel itself is famous for its luxury and architectural beauty, the apartment above holds a quieter, more intimate form of haunting, one that has been felt by residents, staff, and occasional visitors alike. Charles Melville Hayes was a man of meticulous planning and grand visions. He poured his life into the Chateau Laurier project, overseeing every detail from its foundation to its ornate interiors. His sudden death aboard the Titanic left the hotel incomplete in his eyes, and legend has it that his spirit remained drawn to the residence that adjoined his grand creation. Those who live in the apartments above the hotel often speak of a presence that feels simultaneously protective and melancholic, as if Hayes himself continues to walk the halls, observing the hotel and ensuring that it maintains the standards he envisioned. Residents of the Chateau Laurier apartment have recounted strange experiences that defy logical explanation. Footsteps echo in the corridors when no one is present, and doors occasionally open and close on their own. Some have reported hearing the soft murmur of a man's voice, calm and measured, drifting from one room to another. Others claim to have glimpsed a tall figure in period clothing, standing silently at the end of a hallway or near a window, vanishing the moment they approach. These encounters are rarely malevolent, but they leave a lingering sense of awe and unease, a reminder that the spirit of Charles Hayes may still be present, tied eternally to the home and hotel he envisioned. The upper apartments, in particular, seem to attract the most activity. Residents describe an unusual stillness in the air at certain times of day, often accompanied by a subtle chill that runs down the spine. Lights flicker unexpectedly, and personal items occasionally shift from their original places. Some tenants feel watched, sensing an invisible observer in the corners of rooms or behind doorways. Many interpret these experiences as the lingering influence of Hayes, perhaps reviewing the work he never had the chance to complete, or ensuring that his architectural vision remains untainted. Visitors to the apartments sometimes encounter phenomena as well. A hotel staff member once described walking through a hallway late at night and feeling a sudden weight on his shoulders, as if an invisible presence was following him. Others report hearing distant, deliberate footsteps pacing above or around them, despite the floors being unoccupied. Photographs taken in the apartment occasionally reveal faint, unexplained shadows or glows, though they are subtle and fleeting. It is as though the apartment itself holds a memory of its original owner, and these spectral echoes surface when the energy of the living aligns with the spirit's own. Local lore suggests that Hayes' attachment to the Chateau Laurier apartment is more than a residual haunting. It is a purposeful presence. People who experience the phenomenon often describe the spirit as meticulous and watchful, appearing most often in areas connected to the hotel's construction and management. Some have reported seeing him inspecting corners, reviewing furniture arrangements, or lingering near windows that offer views of the hotel below. It is said that he is not malevolent, but precise, a reflection of the man he was in life, ensuring that the project he devoted himself to remains perfect in his absence. The haunting is not limited to visual or auditory experiences. Many report a tangible feeling of energy in the apartment, a subtle weight or tension that seems to hum just beneath the surface of daily life. Residents often feel a presence in moments of quiet or solitude, when the apartment is empty and the world outside has fallen silent. The sensation is not threatening, but it is unmistakably a reminder that history is alive in the space, and that the original architect's spirit is intimately bound to the walls and floors. Some paranormal investigators have visited the apartment in hopes of capturing evidence of Hayes' presence. Using EMF detectors, voice recorders, and night vision cameras. They report picking up strange anomalies, unexplained energy spikes, faint whispers, and transient shadows. While skeptics attribute these occurrences to the old building's structure and natural acoustics, believers maintain that the spirit of Charles Melville Hayes continues to inhabit the apartment, drawn by his devotion to the hotel and the life he never completed. Stories of Hayes' ghost have become part of the apartment's identity, creating a sense of mystery and reverence. Residents and visitors approach the space with both curiosity and caution, aware that they are living alongside a presence that embodies dedication, ambition, and unresolved longing. Many say that the experience is subtle but profound, an acknowledgement that history is not merely preserved in records or photographs, but lives on in the spaces where people invested their hearts and dreams. And so we leave behind the flickering candlelight, the echoing footsteps, and the mournful whispers of Canada's most haunted homes. Each house holds more than just brick and wood. It holds the weight of memory, sorrow, and souls that refuse to rest. These dwellings remind us that the past is never truly gone. The walls listen, the floors remember, and the spirits linger, waiting for the next curious soul who dares to enter. Thank you for walking with us into the shadows tonight. Until next time, keep your lights on and your courage close, for you never know when the house you enter might already be occupied.